I'm officially opening the Sustainable Tairāwhiti meeting and adjourning because we're currently waiting. There's some traffic issues. We're waiting to have a quorum. So we'll adjourn for 15 minutes. Thank you. Morning, I should probably be true to my time and say we'll start fast, and it's only 12 minutes past.
I think you'll be all right because it's...
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Warmest of welcome to the Sustainable Tairāwhiti, Toitu Tairāwhiti Committee. I'll ask Councillor Wharehinga to open with prayer for us. Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we pray for wisdom, for strength, for courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the interests of others above our own. May we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbours. May we be good councillors. This I say in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. I do have apologies today from Councillor Pahura-Huriwai, Councillor Tibble, Councillor Ria. Welcome to Councillor Parata on screen. We also have our CEO and Mr. Tim Barry on screen joining us as well today. I have an apology for lateness for Councillor Cranston. He's still sitting in traffic. Who else? Who did I miss? And an apology for Councillor Tupara as well. He did email you. Hear that? Yes. Kapai? Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favour? Aye. Humphrey carried. Thank you. Any declarations of interest for today? No. I'll take you to page 5 to our minutes. These were emailed out in advance by the lovely Annie, so you would have seen this quite some time before. So you had the opportunity to read those. I'll take them as read. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Robinson. We take it as a fair representation of what was said at that meeting. All in favour? Carried. I take you to page 11, which is just still some additional information. So this is going, if it says here action taken, the plan is to present the cross information in November alongside the full report after we complete the work underway. What is there? Because I see a due date for 15 May. Who's going to follow up on that? Is that you Charlotte? I'm just on the action sheet talking about the net zero. If you can just come back to us and just...
So that, sorry, through your worship, that due date should be now, while it should have been amended to November. That is when the plan will be presented.
Thank you for that. So councillors, on page 11, you'll see that due date will be in November. We move to our governance schedule, which tells us what we will do. And that is page 13. Any leave of absence? No leave of absence. Councillor Thompson, you asked me if you can do acknowledgement. Thank you.
Yep. I just want to acknowledge the Māori ward councillors who aren't here today, and I just want to reiterate that council fully supports the Māori wards.
Thank you for that, much appreciated. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
Okay, next I invite James Blackburne to come and join me in the front here. James. Nadine, I'm loving that you're not here because I'm spreading onto this side my computer, my bag, everything. So today I'm just this whole front table. James, welcome. And you will talk to us about the heritage buildings and just give us a little update. Do you have
There is a
so Heather will be in charge of that. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you. You've done public deputations before. You know we don't debate stuff.
Yep.
We can only ask questions of clarification at the end. Thank you.
Okay. Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Your Worship, the Mayor and councillors, for this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm going to, first thing, I'm going to give you a little pop quiz. I'm going to talk about heritage protection in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and who's responsible for it. So, hands up, who thinks that the responsibility of protection of heritage in New Zealand or in this region is Heritage New Zealand Pohere Tonga?
I do.
Who thinks it's the responsibility of the council to protect heritage in this region?
It's in our plan.
Who thinks it's the responsibility of Heritage Tairāwhiti?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
All of What a clever crowd you have.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily agree. Before I go on, I'll just my declaration of interest. I'm here today as the chairman of Heritage Tairāwhiti. I am on the board of Heritage New Zealand Pōhiri Tonga, but I'm not here in that capacity. So who's who in the Zoom? So you've got Heritage Tairāwhiti. We're a registered charitable organisation. Our aims are to promote the identification, protection, preservation, conservation of heritage places in this region. We're all volunteers. We've got about 120 members, and we have no statutory role to allow it to protect heritage. So it's not we can advocate for it, but it's not our statutory obligation to protect heritage in any way, shape or form. We have no control over it. We advocate for it. Heritage New Zealand Pōhiri Tonga. So it's an autonomous Crown entity via statute. It's a government agency responsible for identifying, protecting, promoting the country's unique historic and cultural heritage. It maintains a list of heritage buildings and sites. The listed buildings on that list have no heritage protection under the list. So if this building, for example, was listed with Heritage New Zealand, that would not give it protection. None at all. Zip. Could be demolished tomorrow. It is a heritage protection authority, which means it can go to the Environment Court and apply for a heritage order to protect the building. But listing does not provide any protection at all. The council, so it's a territorial authority under the Local Government Act. It schedules heritage buildings and sites in the TRMP, as per the RMA. Now this is where protection happens. So scheduled buildings and sites have protection under the plan and via the RMA. And it also is a heritage protection authority. So it can go to the Environment Court to seek a building protection for a building. So fundamentally, the only party in this region that actually has got a statutory role to protect heritage is the council. Not Heritage New Zealand, not Heritage Tairāwhiti, it is the council. So one of the reasons I came to the meeting for this deputation was an article that was in the paper back in February relating to comments made by Councillor Cranston, saying people should be warned against registering buildings on the Heritage New Zealand list, etc., etc. So you've got it there. That is totally and utterly wrong. A whole number of different reasons. So going back to the Peel Street toilets, it was a court action taken by Luke Donnelly, not taken by Heritage New Zealand. Heritage New Zealand was at the court hearing, but it was there very, very reluctantly. It basically got forced to be there by the courts. The protection order was imposed by the Environment Court under the RMA, not imposed by Heritage New Zealand or applied for by Heritage New Zealand. They had nothing to do with it. Oops, I pressed the wrong button here, Heather. What have I done? Just one of the comments Andy made in his article, he was saying that 90% of the population don't want the toilets. I'm not sure where that figure came from. I suspect it was plucked out of the ether. There was a survey conducted in 1999 prior to that, or as part of that court hearing, or just prior to it, and 62% of the residents at the time felt it should be retained and done up. So just in terms of heritage, and let's put a positive spin on it. So Wanganui District Council is a very strong advocate for heritage protection. It, in its annual plans, sets aside $150,000 a year for grants to help owners. Those grants, what the council there has found, it creates jobs in the community because they might give $10,000 to an owner to help them get a DSA, structural assessment of their buildings. The owners then go on to do the buildings up, which creates jobs in the community. It increases property values, so councils get to rate more. If you go to Wanganui now, it's a thriving hub for tourism. It's just absolutely pumping, so you've got more money coming into the community, and you've got a huge amount of increased pride in that community. In terms of tourism and heritage, the arts, culture and heritage sector in New Zealand generates 15 billion in GDP. So it's not a small part of an economy. It has the potential to be a very big part of any regional economy. I know that in the papers today, Debbie was showing me previously that you've got a paper about the dilapidated buildings and bits and pieces. So I know that the Ministry of Culture and Heritage in the first Labour government under Jacinda Ardern was tasked with doing a huge amount of research into this and looking at how the statutes and everything could be amended and what mechanisms are there, because everyone knows that council's got no mechanisms really to deal with it. Heritage New Zealand hasn't, the government hasn't, it's devoid and all that, the different legislations, whether it's the RM Act, the Heritage New Zealand Poheru Tonga Act or the Building Act, none of them are interconnected. Under the Building Act, you can demolish a heritage building, you don't need a consent. Under the RMA, you might need a consent, but you don't need necessarily an archaeological consent, and then so it all just gets a cluster. So the Ministry of Culture and Heritage has done a whole lot of work on this. They were looking at one of the issues which fundamentally we've got in this community is demolition by neglect. And so suggestion is to actually see via getting government to try and resurrect some of that. Also in the past they used to have a fund called the Equip Fund, which was to help building owners. Primarily people that couldn't go to DIA or other sources of funding, so private building owners, to help them with structural strengthening projects. And again, it was a bit like the Whanganui example. Small dollops of money, but it created a huge economic benefit. Unfortunately, that disappeared under the Labour government. I'm not sure what their reasoning was. Some people have assumed it was because they don't like helping private individuals. It's a philosophical debate. I don't know if that's the answer or not, or the reason. But that fund, if we could get that up and running again, would make a huge difference. Especially if it was targeted to, as an example, you've got a lot of commercial buildings in here that are ripe for conversion to housing and commercial. So if funds were set up to assist that, it might, you know, it would be a good thing. It would be good for us to lobby for that, and working with other organisations like Heritage New Zealand, Ministry of Culture and Heritage, to lobby the government to try and get these things sorted and to sort out the cluster between all these different acts, because they're not interconnected and not working well.
Fantastic. I open up for some questions. Councillor Telfer and then Councillor Foster. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's interesting because it's amazing that you have all these things that don't really have a lot of clout. But anyway, you mentioned the first Labour government six or 7 years ago looked into this and there's work done on it. What came out of it?
We don't know. It's sat with MCH. The heritage community doesn't know where that got to. It was fairly slow moving. It then hit COVID, and a lot of the staff that were working on it got seconded to deal with COVID response. And then post-COVID, it sort of slipped. The priority of the Prime Minister, who was the Minister for Culture and Heritage, you know, it changed a little bit.
Of our derelict buildings that we've got earmarked with our government remit and local government New Zealand remit, how many of those have been earmarked for heritage, or Heritage New Zealand?
I haven't seen the report, Councillor Foster, but I suspect a large number of them probably either are registered or are listed with Heritage New Zealand, but again, that doesn't give protection. But a large number of the CBD buildings are on the council's heritage schedule.
Sure. Okay. So that gives them protection.
Technically, under the RMA provisions would apply.
So can we unlock that?
Well, that would take a change to the TRMP, which is quite a process.
Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation, James. I've got a couple of questions in regards, and it's off the back of Councillor Foster's point around our schedule of buildings and also the list that Tairāwhiti hold. As someone who's kind of very knowledgeable in that Pouhere Taonga space, what would be the expectation from Pouhere Taonga for us, for our schedule to be aligned to the list that you guys have? Like, would there be a high expectation?
Well, there would be an expectation, I think, but communities see their local heritage differently to what Pouhere Taonga has. There are more buildings on local schedules under their district plans than there are listed by Heritage New Zealand. So typically there would be more buildings on a council schedule than there would be on the Heritage New Zealand. And a lot of that is to do with a funding issue at Heritage New Zealand. They can't, the amount of funding, what it costs them to list a building is huge. You know, the amount of research that goes into it is, it's arduous. It costs them a lot of money, so they have limited resources to do it. So there's typically more buildings in the RMA lists or plans around the community than there are on Heritage New Zealand.
Right, so just supplementary, the appetite, Pouhere Taonga, so say Pouhere Taonga have the list and we all of a sudden just shrink our scheduled buildings down. Pouhere Taonga's position on that would be?
They would probably be advocating for it not to be shrunk. One of the comments I'd say to shrink it is, yeah, that's an option, but just remember to demolish those buildings costs a hell of a lot of money. What goes back in their place costs a hell of a lot of money. It is not environmentally sensible to demolish all the buildings because you're suddenly releasing a whole lot of carbon. You know, it's not an environmentally sustainable thing to do, to demolish buildings and replace them. Just, you're releasing huge amounts of carbon. All the embodied carbon is sitting in those buildings there. It's much better to do those buildings up from a number of different factors. Economically, from a tourism point of view, from a community pride and things, it's better for the planet, it's a better thing to do. We should be advocating for that, not for demolition.
I'm thinking more from the perspective of building owners being able to do what building owners want to do with their buildings. My second question was around, I hear in your presentation about funding coming out of central government. This current government has been very clear on the fiscal tightness. If no funding was coming through, what I'd really be interested to hear from you about what we could do in region in order to be able to solve this in region. Do you have any ideas about that?
I think I would strongly suggest that having a chat to some of the councillors and the council staff in Whanganui, you know, I would again advocate for someone from, or a couple from this council to go over to Whanganui and see what they've been doing. If you haven't been there in the last 10 years, you'll be staggered. The other council that's done a lot of work in this space is also Dunedin, of South Dunedin, and the transformation that's been happening there in the last 10, 15 years. So yeah, there's huge benefits to the community and to council because you generate income, you generate jobs without a huge investment.
Councillor Robinson.
Yes.
Councillor Robinson and then
Thanks,
Councillor
James, for the
Allen.
presentation. So is the number of what you're asking us today is to advocate with central government? Or you're asking us to look at this more
Reopen the
deeply,
fund.
or what do you want from us?
Two things, I suppose. One I'd advocate with central government to try and get that equipped fund or something of its ilk back up and running.
Was that a contestable fund?
It was no, it was contestable with the building owners themselves. It wasn't huge amounts of money. It was sort of like $1 million a year or something like that. I'm not, you know, in the whole government budget, it's
Might get 100 people applying.
yeah, but it was enough to generate things. I'd advocate for that. I'd advocate get that work that Ministry of Culture and Heritage was doing, get that going again, to get all those different acts aligned.
But again,
But-
it's us advocating with them.
yes,
too.
yes.
This is above our station.
No, I realise
Yeah.
that. It's you advocating for that. I'd also advocate for, in this council itself, to look at what Whanganui have done and what the benefits out of that have been. Again, they've invested 150k a year. It's not a big sum of money.
Supplementary, is Heritage Tairāwhiti in a position to assist? For example, it would be very, very helpful if you were to pull together a paper for it, for example, which set out the listed buildings for us, compare that with the schedule, gave some data, something like that, where somewhere where your head is and your heart is, obviously, and your skill set is. That's always a good start for us to tuck in our hand and go forth. Are you in a position to help provide, or at least liaise with staff? Because, as you can appreciate, our staff are primarily focused on a 3-year recovery plan for our community. This is an important thing. This issue is raised continually at this table. But the reality is we probably can't do this journey on our own.
I'm sure that Heritage Tairāwhiti would be very willing to work with council, and I mean all of council, to advocate for this and work through to finding a solution that works. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Just one comment I'd make about building owners. It frustrates me a lot with building owners that let their buildings get neglected, because every year they are collecting depreciation in their tax returns. They're getting depreciation, which is effectively money for them to put back into their buildings. So it's bloody unfair of them to then cry poor at the other end, because they've had the money. They've had the economic benefit of it. So I don't have a lot of sympathy.
Okay, last question, Councillor
Thank you
Alder.
for the report. You brought up the Peel Street toilets. Can you tell us how that's progressing after $1 million?
I've got to be careful because I'm wearing many hats, because I was the architect for the council on that
But that's
project.
not James's project, it's a council project, so you can't really ask James about how the project is going because it's a council project. It's not James's
It was after
project.
a comment, is all.
Hi, James.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, no,
Yeah, I don't think
you
I
need to
can
wear
ask.
the hat that you came in,
Have to.
otherwise it waters down why you came in here,
Yeah.
because people will be thinking about other stuff. So thank you for your time. We will touch base again. You and I have spoken about this before and we will again. But thank you for also clarifying, and we will take a look about how we talk to government. Well, everyone is with bated breath today, waiting 2 o'clock for the budget to drop to see what goes where, what is being cut, what is, and that will also give us a clear steer how we advocate going forward. But thank you for your time, much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Have a great meeting, folks.
Thank you.
Always have great meetings.
Okay, we've got no extraordinary business, councillors. We've got no notices of motion or adjourned business. So I'm going to take you to our first very, very good report, the waste assessment, 14. Mr. Phil Nickerson, are you going to take the hot seat? Or who is taking the hot seat? I will move my stuff. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so Phil, I was thinking if you want to give all these reports are taken as read, thank you. It is very informative and it was relatively easy to read as well, lots of information in there. But you can take those reports and attachments as read. But you want to give us like a 1-minute summary and then we open the floor for questions.
So, morning everyone. Essentially, we have completed the waste assessment as you've seen in here. They've gathered information from various sources. They've gathered data from various sources. And it kind of gives us a snapshot of our region and how it's looking. So, Council has a current WMMP, Waste Management Minimisation Plan. Under legislation, we're required to complete the waste assessment and then decide if we review our WMMP and if it's fit for purpose. So the WMMP creates a foundation based on the data from the waste assessment and the solid waste analysis protocols, which was part of that as well. And that WMMP will set our goals and objectives for the council. So the last few years there's been many changes to legislation with the banning of plastic products, product stewardship schemes, changes in Aotearoa for COVID and multiple weather events which have impacted on our region. So to review the WMP, in a review. It sort of forms a basis of how we want to handle and manage our waste in the region and what we can do. So it's essentially an opportunity to take the information from the attachments, to make a decision to amend our current WMP, and it'll enable meaningful engagement and consultation with communities, iwi hapu, local groups, local communities, and it'll give us a solid foundation for future-proofing waste and our waste practices, and just give guidance to what we do.
Awesome. Okay, councillors, I'm going to open the floor and we start with Councillor Foster. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Phil. This is pretty inspiring reading when you read all through this. Actually, it's a wake-up call. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is on page 50. There's a phrase here: when council receives inquiries for the disposal of household hazardous waste, residents are generally advised to keep the material stored in a shed or similar at home until collection is organised or provided information on alternatives. And I believe there's no alternative at the moment. Is that the case, or what is happening at the moment?
At the moment, there's no alternative, so there is outside of Tairāwhiti companies that will do collections on a regular basis. So we're working with some of those other bigger groups who will be able to come through and do managed collections. That's something that's just taken a bit of time. Tairāwhiti being at the end of the line is often
Is that done by our contractors, is it?
So he's trying to find contractors that will come to region.
Yeah.
Our contractors in region don't have those facilities and abilities to do that at the moment. So generally, we need to find contractors that will come to into region and collect those.
So they've got to go to those people's places to collect them from there, or
so
the collection place?
At the moment, that's what we're doing. We need to organise a collection place in town.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And that's in the pipeline. The other thing is, this reading was like, oh my goodness, 60% of our waste going to landfill could be recycled. I mean, that's just incredible. At composting and 50% food. What with all this food waste? It's just unbelievable. I mean, my household, we don't have any food waste. We've got a garden. And then,
it can be simple if you get chickens, or we have a very hungry Labrador, and you compost as well. So
exactly.
it is.
No, I shake your head and you think, oh my goodness, this is an educational program, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
I remember way back we had a presentation where someone said, if this is your rubbish, so any food waste go either in your worm farm or your little compost bin, then everything that can be recycled gets taken out, and what you're left with should be dry, a few things that you just cannot recycle or compost. There shouldn't be any wet stuff in there really. It should be just the bare basics that you could not get rid of through another process. But I don't think we are there yet.
Actually, there was a program like last night on 7 Sharp, and it was about coloured plastic bottles that they can't recycle. They can recycle clear plastic bottles, but there's no place that, or only Auckland will take coloured plastic bottles. So it was quite interesting. It coincided with this paper quite well. But our waste stream is just incredible.
You finished, Councillor Foster? Good. Councillor Thompson, Robinson, and then Gregory.
Yeah, thanks for that paper. It's real comprehensive and informative. I actually really enjoyed reading it and learned a lot from it. Page 17, the Waste Management Act, says we've got a statutory obligation to ensure waste is managed effectively and efficiently, but also to minimise it. Are we doing this? I think yes, to some degree, but I think clearly reading this report, we should be doing much better. In the waste hierarchy model, the number one is to lessen waste generation. As Larry mentioned, the organic waste is 51.6 and food waste, food scraps is 42.8. At our house we got chickens. 12 chickens, thanks to someone. And 12, and we don't put any food scraps in our bin, and all our neighbours' food scraps go over our fence too, and 12 chickens easily gets rid of that. It might sound silly, but over in France, a government initiative was to people could get 2 chickens each for free, and that was a thing they had to remove waste. So that's that's something we can do. Just looking at what we do, like all our kids have solid drink bottles. Like we never buy plastic drink bottles. We have a big one and just fill up the smaller drink bottles. So that's what we can do ourselves towards it. One thing that really bugs me is when we had the guy from Gizzy Waste, and he said that all our recycling goes up to the landfill. And then reading in this paper, there's a conflicting with the what waste was put out on our curb site, and then it went from 51.6% organic, and then 22.5% organic went to the landfill. So that just shows that's been brought down by the amount of recycling waste that goes in there. They mentioned, they mentioned on page 96 reasons for it, and cross-contamination, staff shortages, but I think that's something we really need to really need to look at that. It just upsets me that you take the time to do the recycling, and then it just goes to the landfill. What is it?
More questions?
I did have one question in regards to the Tonkin tip here. It says it's class 1, but it only takes class 2 industrial waste. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's not our landfill site, so he's working through his process now. I'm for option B to amend our existing.
Thank you. I think it was Councillor Robinson and then Gregory and then Manston. Thank you.
You're just jumping around dogs on tap here for a second. First up, thank you so much for the report. It's something that sort of been hanging out for. I'm happy to move the paper. And obviously we've got to meet our statutory obligation. Sorry?
No, she was just saying she'll second.
I really want to ensure that we socialise this report with our community as broadly as we can before we actually, so we get the best feedback possible. I want us to learn some lessons from our last consultation process, because this is actually now the time where we can set a pathway. You know, like, I was staggered to read that I'd always told people 35% of our waste going to Tairāwhiti was, green waste, but to see it at these numbers is just alarming. And we are at this junction now where, as a council, we have to set some pathways, for really transformative pathways. So I really want this to be socialised as broad as possible, for this data to go out there, for us to get as much information back and feedback as we can from the community before we come back with the draft. I want the draft to be informed by the community, not us, not staff do a draft and then we put it out there for consultation, because that's a fait accompli, and essentially. So that's my 5 cents worth, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gregory, thank you. And you second, happy to second, like you said earlier.
The recommendation. Thank you also for this report. It was really interesting. On page 56, by January 1, 2030, we have introduced a food scrap service in Gisborne, which isn't really that far away. Just wondering how far along we are with that. And also on page 69, from the way I read that table, it shows that the food waste in our district is going down. Not horrendously, but a little bit. And I just noticed having a grandson at kindy, and that's where we need to get into schools and kindies. That's where we need to get in. Like, they have absolutely no food waste. They have no rubbish in their lunch boxes, and it's awesome to see. When you can get in there and see it at that level. And I know the schools that do that too, and I just think that education is where we need to concentrate to sort this out.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cranston.
Can he answer that?
What question was that?
How would we,
The
how
food
are we
waste
going
collection.
to
Food waste collection, through the chair, the food waste collections will be negotiated in the next curbside collections contract as part of that. Financial year next year.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks for that. For me, it was more about getting in front of the problem, and a lot of getting in front of the problem is unfortunately central government. They do talk about protocols and conventions and all that. I just hate going to Bunnings now to buy a pair of scissors, which I need a pair of scissors to cut the plastic out of to get the pair of scissors. And probably the biggest danger to the environment is actually polystyrene. Polystyrene doesn't break down. It breaks up, but it doesn't break down. So you can make it really small in that, but it's always in the environment. It's got a lot of impacts in that. You buy a fridge, you buy a phone, you get polystyrene thrown in. There's no reason that someone out there that's smarter than me could not develop something along the basis of wool, which breaks down in 3 months as opposed to 500 or 600 years. Unfortunately, that's probably at the whim of the government to get on top of that thing and in front of that thing. We are the ones that are at the end of the process where we've got to try and figure out how to get rid of it. So a lot of the pressure does have to go on central government, and I reckon we should start a movement that if you buy something from Bunnings or Mitre 10, it's wrapped in polystyrene and plastic, you cut it out of the polystyrene and plastic there, and you leave it at Mitre 10 or Bunnings, and they have got to get rid of it. And then if they've got to get rid of it, suddenly the problem will get solved because the people that are supplying this crap will think of other ways of doing it. Wool is the most obvious. You think of what you can do with wool and how insulating it can be, how it breaks down and that. It's weird to me that the industry in this country is so threatened, yet there's an opportunity there that some innovator should be able to get on top. So I think the pressure does need to be at the front of the process, not the back. We're sitting around this table saying, well, how do we get rid of it? How do we get rid of it? Let's just not get it in the first place is the better problem solution. As far as organic waste goes, and as it's been said around this table, it's a mystery to me. I've got a worm farm that's the size of half a 44-gallon drum, and it gets rid of all my organic waste easily. Doesn't cost, once it's set up, doesn't cost you anymore. I've had it for 15 years. I've never had to replace the worms, and it just gets rid of everything. And it's education that people, on the basis of the organic waste that does go to our landfill, there are very easy solutions to get that number down. So whether it's education or whether it's some sort of initiative where we supply, I don't know, but it's just diabolical that it goes to landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. No. Thank you, Councillor Elder.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, very interesting report and really quite shocking with the amount of waste that a city can produce. I did ask for some figures on the total cost of trucked out rubbish. I don't know, is that going to be made available to us, Heather?
Are we just reviewing it for some commercial sensitivity?
Sorry, I'm not hearing.
Commercial sensitivity, they're just reviewing. It's a contract being led by someone else, so she'll let you know.
Right. So I thought it'd be interesting if we could see the total cost of our rubbish going out, and then we could put a total figure on the cost of the organic portion of that, and then added to that, because somewhere in that report it talks about the $3 to $4 million a year that the Hawke's Bay pay to offset the carbon debt on the methane produced from their rubbish. Can I ask you a question on page 76, where the report, 2018 to 2024, set some goals to reduce waste total by 20% and to decrease organic waste by 40%. Can you tell us what was done to try and achieve those goals? That's my first question.
Page 76.
Page 76 or 52 on another report. Page 76 starts off with the review of the 2018-2024 Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. So the following district-wide waste minimisation targets were set: a 20% reduction in the total waste in Class 1 landfills by 2024, and a 40% decrease in organic waste by 2024, curbside collection. So that was the goal that was set back then. I just wondered what was put in place to try and achieve those reductions.
So through the chair, the decrease of organic waste was in support of the Tairāwhiti environment. We did a lot of workshops, composting workshops, Makashi workshops, which were implemented. So they're held at the Tairāwhiti Environment Centre, and they take community members through what can be done as a home composting in different facilities.
Education.
Through education.
Is there a measure of the success of those initiatives?
I'd have to have a look through, get time to.
Thank you. My next question is, I'm not going to get that figure, am I? The cost of the total amount. Page 202, I think it is, there's a reference to the seasonality of the rubbish, and that we haven't necessarily accounted for it in the survey. The survey was done from April to May, over a short window of time after a flood, and may have been warped by people throwing stuff out. It may have been warped by importing of large amounts of product. So until you can reference that short window of survey with an overall amount, we're really not dealing with good figures. It is quite shocking to see the amount of industrial ICI waste that could have been recycled arriving at the dump site. And is anyone talking to our businesses and getting them to cut this waste down? Or was that just an anomaly?
Through you, the chair, that this is a snapshot of a period of time, and that's why it's done this way. We did, actually was planned to do it of Cyclone Gabrielle, so it was pushed out to a time when we were quite confident that some of the waste streams had gone down. The building and recycling waste is something that needs to be dealt with separately, and there are people looking at aspects of how we can actually address businesses and construction companies and how we can reduce their waste. That is going.
And then just as a statement, I'd like to ask the paper to do a deep dive. I can't do that.
No, thank you.
But we do need to alert the public to the...
Yeah, and that's why the paper is covering every minute that we speak. It's live streamed to the public as well. Councillor Telfer, thank you.
Yeah, colleagues have already touched on the amount of organic waste in rubbish bag collections in town. It was quite shocking. I found that 51.6%. Yes, makes sense to have a worm farm, have some chooks and whatnot, but the reality of it is a whole lot of people can't look after themselves, let alone look after the animals. So, I think there's a real opportunity there to really push this organic waste collection as fast as we can. I don't understand why a lot of these things do take so long. Sometimes if we just say, let's do it, let's do it. So that would remove a huge amount of waste. It would remove a huge amount of contamination of other products and recyclable products as well. So that's the one thing I would be pushing for as quick as we can. It's quite interesting when you look at the amount of waste on page 228, I think it is. 206 is that per capita, Gisborne's 122 kilograms of waste per capita per person in Gisborne. Wellington, which is the green capital of New Zealand, is 206 kilograms. So quite interesting, sometimes people need to walk the talk. The other thing I really noticed is you know, there's a graph here, page 228, which says landfill, waste to landfill is increasing and recycling is decreasing. So that's a bad statistic. So it basically tells us that we're not actually, the implications of doing that aren't severe enough. So yeah, the waste, the organic waste sort of, that's a huge resource for somebody to use. They can feed a huge amount of pigs or chooks or something. There's a business model there which we can be paid for, let alone carting it out of this district and creating someone else's problem. So that would be a push, and I personally do not understand why a lot of these things do seem to take so long, so I'd be pushing that really quickly.
So Councillor Tairāwhiti, that things take so long because we have contracts with suppliers that have certain time frames, so you can't just interrupt the contract and say we want to do, so it does take time in those renegotiations to make it happen. So I just wanted to make that comment. Any last comments? You will have a right of reply, Councillor Robinson. Who has not spoken?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The one thing that I do want to clarify for those who might be live streaming and also for the paper in regards to the recycled waste that ends up into landfill due to the cleanliness of that thing going into our recycling. And please correct me if I'm wrong there, Phil, but I'm sure I read the report correctly. And due to the cross-contamination of things that can't be recycled into the recycling, therefore making all of that stuff have to go to landfill. Do I have that correct? Yeah. So just to make that clear, that because there is a perception in the community that our stuff is going straight from recycling straight into the landfill. That's not the case. If our community out there aren't cleaning the things or are putting things that aren't supposed to be recycled into the recycling, then that actually contaminates the entire bin. So you have to bin the entire thing. So yeah, that's all.
So I'll take the opportunity to, one thing that stood out to me, and everyone touched on it today, and I think we need to say it out loud. It is the responsibility of every single person living in our region to step up to the challenge. It is not the council that need to step up to the challenge. We need to step up to educate. We need to make sure the facilities we have are smart. We look after our carbon footprint. We do the policies we have as best as possible. But I want to put a challenge out to everyone living in our region. You can play your part, and sometimes it's small stuff, like the food waste, where you can, if you can, maybe have a little compost bin. I have a little bucket. We're a relative small family, so twice a week I can put that in a compost bin. I do know that the Environment Centre has offered workshops for composting. It's not available to everyone. Someone might be living in a small little flat, or there's no place to. So there's, I'm not trying to put blame on people that cannot do it, but if you can, play your role here, because that is a massive part that can then be removed. Something that wasn't touched on today, which stood out to me, is the huge amount of stuff that will never be able, stuff that should be in the rubbish. A huge part, the sanitary paper, which are nappies and sanitary products, stuff that should be in the rubbish, is a huge part of that as well. And how we can also, I'm not going to tell a new mother to have a cloth nappy. I was one of the generation that have these, nappies, and so we don't want to judge people and tell them what to do, but we can maybe look at options that make it easier for moms to buy those lovely packs, the packs of 7 nappies that can easily dry or whatever. My boys are too big now, I can't remember what nappies and how you work with it anymore. But that to me is a huge part of our recycling, of our rubbish as well, which is not as easy to address as maybe removing the food waste, or making sure you remove everything that can possibly be recycled. And then it is up to us as the regulators and the supplier of that service to make sure we have fit-for-purpose collection, which might be the food collection that Councillor Telfer spoken to, that we have fit-for-purpose recovery of our recycling, and then also looking how we look after our own waste in our own region and don't dump it on someone else. So for me, this was an eye-opener again. But when I read it, I thought as a council, our role, one of the biggest roles would be that education, walking alongside our community to make sure everyone know it is their responsibility, and we will look after the facilities that then take that higher responsibility in regards to carbon, cleanliness, and making sure that we also have fit for purpose policy. So I just wanted to add that as well, that every one of us have our little role to play. Write a reply.
Right.
Yes.
There was a bit in there about wheelie bins, and I kind of aired a bit of caution actually, because it doesn't seem to be the fix that everyone is hoping. And wheelie bins have actually created more rubbish than less. So is that something that we are looking at? Are we? I mean, the only problem that I could see that why you would have a wheelie bin would be because possibly dogs ripping up plastic bags. Is that an issue here locally? But you know, or are we still seriously considering wheelie bins? Because then, you know, the expense of having those by council and the trucks conversion and everything is like, holy hang, you know, you're looking at a huge amount of money to start with and changing a lot of different things for a system which doesn't seem to be as adequate as we were led to believe.
Yes, we are still looking at that option, and that was talked about, and that will come through at a later date. The wheelie bins, there are issues with dogs in region. We have cats, people, wind, whatever it may be. But if we look at the overall picture, it comes back to the education. So when you have a bin, it gives you a fixed volume, let's say, that you can dispose of, which will make people think more, and then work with community groups, educate people of what can go into each bin and how it is separated to reduce that sort of current thought process of, oh, just chuck it in a bag and it's hidden away. I know other councils have different ways of educating at curbside when they do their bin collections, so they have staff who do check bins and give feedback to residents. So some of the technologies and trucks is quite these days, but it's all part of that bigger picture of how we can actually educate our communities, separate our waste products and waste streams, and get over.
Okay, if there are no further comment, I am going to give our friend Councillor Robinson the opportunity for a right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, wheelie bins was the thing I was going to touch on in my right of reply. Councillor Foster, to quote someone, stole my thunder. So we got funding from the previous government. I believe there was hundreds of thousands of dollars committed to the wheelie bin project. Phil, where are we actually at with that? Because I understood they were meant to be coming online this year, if not early next year. Can you please just give us a snapshot update?
So a snapshot update. Curbside collection contract is due for renewal 1st of July next year, 2025. And we're looking at procurement plan now to make sure that we can implement a new contract with the proposal to have wheelie bins from that time and to be implemented from that contract.
Second point is, Madam Chair, you spoke absolutely correctly about council's role in education and facilitating. So our role is enabling and facilitating. You know, we can do it in Tairāwhiti. I firmly believe we can do it. And the third thing is in relation to Councillor Cranston's suggestion about wool. I don't think, with respect, he has thought of the volume. I mean, you pack 3 or 4 sheep around a fridge, it becomes a very big box.
Councillor Robinson, stick to business. Are you ready for us to move? Some people you can dress up, but you cannot bring them out. I have a mover in Councillor Robinson. I have a seconder in Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Okay, Heather. We ready?
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks a lot, Phil. Awesome report.
When is the next thing coming back to us?
Okay, let's start. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Debbie. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip. Hooray! 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 take you to our second report, which all of you have seen this before. This is a letter that I have written to the Minister, what was that, Charlotte, 3 weeks ago? And it was touched on earlier by James Blackburne. It's in regards to having some legislation, enabling legislation for us to ask building owners to keep it in a semi-decent way so that it don't become an issue. We can only act when it is nearly falling apart. So there's no positive incentive or tool there for us to use. So you have seen that letter. My proposal is that we do this remit which Charlotte and them pulled together for us. If we pass this today, I need to move quick smart to get 5 other council. So my office will be sending this today to all our Zone 3. We've got some councils that already have done some work in there, so we'll send that to them. If we get the support we need, I'll speak to the remit at the conference. If it is voted on by local government by the majority of councils at the conference, then local government New Zealand take on that lobbying position on all councils' behalf. Because this would be something that's not unique to the Gisborne District Council. This is something throughout this paper where we have seen lots of other councils in other ways are addressing the same issue. Anything you want to add, Charlotte? No? Councillors, do you have questions? Councillor Wharehinga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. No questions. I am happy to move this paper. We have so many derelict buildings and borderline derelict buildings in order to in our CBD that we need to do something about. I mean, we do have local owners of some of those buildings who we've been able to have local and regional conversations with because they're invested in this local city and in our region. It's those ones that don't live here, that own buildings in our CBD who just don't care, and we actually do need some kind of legislative change in order to be able to make them do right on behalf of our community. So I'm absolutely 100% in support of this of this remit. I just really hope that there are 5 other councils out there that decide to come along with us too. So, kia ora, thank you very much for this, Your Worship.
Awesome, thank you, and you've moved it.
Yes.
Councillor Foster, thank you.
More than happy to second it, and I've been a really strong advocate on this, and I applauded the 17-page remit that you did to government as well. On this remit, it does not mention about the predicament that we find ourselves in with the owner of 5 major buildings in our CBD in jail on drug charges, and so that's a really big predicament that...
It's in the remit.
It is in there.
Oh, in part of this, yeah, sorry, yeah. Yeah, but so, yeah, we need to really have tools from government that we can start getting on top of these buildings and making sure that we get them rectified as fast as possible, because our CBD is in such a bad state at the moment, and there's work to be done.
Thank you for that, Councillor Foster. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks for that. Unfortunately, I did miss a lot of James's stuff this morning, and a lot of that's relevant to what's going on here. What's our expectation of an owner that's got a building that is going to cost yay million to get up to spec, but his opportunity is demolition and rebuilding? Are we going to hold on to that? And this goes back to the Peel Street toilet, having no function and having a huge dollar requirement to get it up to speed. So are we going to pass that on to the owner that, okay, your building is ugly, we don't like it, it's not doing any good for the city? Are we going to say you must get it up to the standard under the basis of the heritage of the building, or are we going, or does this permit demolition and rebuilding? Because that's where the issue is. That's where the issue is in Christchurch. I mean, the owners are sitting there looking at their building with heritage value, and there's a really fine balance between the heritage value and the cost of maintaining that heritage value and having that building purposeful, or demolition, and it's often the more likely opportunity for the owner of that building is the loss of that heritage value. So there's a balancing act there that's going to be really tricky. I am for the facade and maintaining heritage values, but there's a line. There's a line that's really hard to determine of maintaining that building at an exorbitant cost, which is at the owner's expense, which he may not see the value in, or that property on the basis of, okay, it's not doing any good for the city, but him taking a different opportunity.
I do have a mover and a second. It's quite straightforward, submitting a remit. So if everyone's happy, we've got a mover in Councillor Wharehinga, seconder in Councillor Foster. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Charlotte. Dog control fees. Mr. James Beattie. So we take this as read. There were some questions raised about the previous year's fees, not in the paper, but you do need by inflation, and Councillor Elder did his calculation. It's about a $2 increase. So thank you for that. There was just a question, maybe if we increase fees to also put the previous year's fees as a reference. Anything you want to add before I open?
Just noting that obviously this is about timing in terms of processes and stuff, but any submissions related to questions that come through the planning process, I suspect there'll be some stuff around working dogs can be picked up as part of that process still, and if there's any changes that council wish to make, then the normal financial process of applying credits or likewise can be undertaken then.
Councillor Elder.
I'm just a bit bemused by why dangerous dogs registration has gone down by $10 and all of the fees have gone up. Previous registration was 153 and it's down to 143. So page 194. Dangerous dogs, there's 143, is that correct?
But it is basically the maximum you can charge, which is based I think around about 150% of all new dog fees. So it'll be a calculated amount. So if the proportion of the ordinary dog is a certain amount, there's only a certain maximum you can charge. But I'll double check on those kind of the calculations that they have.
Well, if all the others have gone up, then surely it should have stayed the same or?
No, I think Paul,
In proportion.
it's a proportion.
Yeah. So you've only got 2%, so you can't. Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
You know, a case in point would be the young hill country shepherd who's got a team of 10 and never causes anybody any bother, and he's up for quite a hefty fee, significant chunk of money, and yet here we have a dangerous dog which potentially can cause a lot of damage and trouble, and they're paying less. Anyway, that's just my comment.
Councillor Gregory.
Thank you. I just, similar to what Councillor Alder was just saying with regards to working dogs on farms, well, we don't have a fee for a team, do we?
No.
Is that something that we could look at? Because
Yeah, I think that's been put to council in the past in terms of submissions of the federated farms in particular.
Been raised several.
And it's something we could look into if council wants to conduct a specific review around it. Also, we could put that as part of the 3-year plan process as potentially one of the ones to have a concerted look at that space. There is potentially some merit to that.
and it wouldn't work for this year then, would it?
We'd look at it in the next financial year. Conduct the review perhaps over the next 6 months of the first of the new financial year. Something thereafter.
I support that because working dogs are raised with me quite often by farmers who might have a crew of 10 dogs at $58 a go, and the dogs don't come into town or anything, so I would really support it. I see Pauline's hand over there. Just Pauline.
I think that's probably one of the things when we come into the deliberations. It will raise that there is a potential to say that a maximum charge is for 10 dogs, and thereafter that's the maximum charge. And if there is a person that pays based on these other things, they can have a credit easily to that particular owner. So there's a way of addressing that if you wish to in the deliberations.
I would support that, thank you very much. Any more questions?
I'm adamant we really want to do a bit of a deep dive into that, because there are other regions in the country that their working dog fees are way down. You hear this every year when you travel away to dog trials and whatnot. So I think it needs some work. I don't like the maximum of 10 dogs. There are people that have 10 dogs. There's a lot that only need 6, and that's...
So that's to be discussed, what number we put on it.
That sort of discussion needs to be looked at, but because, traditionally, all those farmers, like your worship, sorry.
Thank you.
The dogs don't go off the farm unless they're going to trials or whatever, and they're not in town. So I think we really need to have a good look at that going forward.
Thank you. I think there's agreement around the table. It's been raised with us a few times.
So pick it up in the deliberations, and that might be one of the outcomes. You can instruct that a review is undertaken on that matter. You can even set a time frame for it, and I think the team's keen to have a look at it as well.
Yeah, similar to Colin, just with that inflation, is that consistent against them all, or is that some are more, some are less? That's the question I had.
Through the chair, some of that will be a practical sense. If you pay at 2.9% and it makes it $45.35 or 36 cents, you're going to round it up. So it's within those parameters of the places that you do it, and then you just either round up, round down.
Okay, so none's really inconsistent. No. Thank you, and I just support that dog or my mates. Similar.
It's not about our mates, it's about all of us. Anyway, do I have a mover for this paper?
Yeah, I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Telfer, seconded by Councillor Elder. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, James. Okay, lucky last, Mr. Rod. And Sarah joining you as well, or is it just you?
No, Tim's online to give us when we go through the presentation.
Mr. Tim Barry, welcome. We'll open the floor. So you're going to do a small presentation?
Yeah, we've got a presentation as well that we'll go through.
Right.
We've obviously given an update here on recovery, and happy to take any questions. The paper is the paper we put up the other day. You'll see here on the front page around the risks with the Tairāwhiti Road, and at our presentation, Tim will join us and have conversations around some of the roading projects there. So we'll talk through that, but overall we're in amber colour, with fossil at green, flood resilience obviously at amber, and community-led recovery plans as green, and woody debris as green. And Tairāwhiti Road is red, and as we keep saying, as we define the scope and we get closer on the scope of that project, Tim will give an operational update as we go through the presentation there. Happy to take any questions on the paper. You'll see there we've spoken about this in the past, but we've got our steering group up and running with 2 independents, being Bruce Robinson, who is our Audit and Risk Chair, and Duncan Gibb, who's an engineer from Australia, providing input into that group and helping us facilitate that and giving us good feedback on their experience in the Canterbury rebuild, and certainly on the Akura rebuild as well, which has given us some good guidance there. You'll see fossil, we'll talk about that through the presentation, and our flood resilience and our road networking, which Tim will give us a bit more detail, and woody debris, and the fact that we've been given another $18 million there to work through that. So happy to take any questions on the report before we go to the presentation.
Yeah, I've got a question. Just from this last lot of rain, we've now got inundation with woody debris on our main beaches and local beaches. I'm sure there'll be more up the coast as well. So are we going to address that? Is that going to be addressed over winter, or is it going to be left like it has been in the past.
So while funding's available, we are going to work with Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, and we are working to have 50 metres clear either side of the surf clubs. So we won't be going and doing the whole beaches again right this time, but we want to keep in front of the surf clubs, both Waikanai and Midway, 50 metres each side of them, clear for any debris as we work through what our longest strategy is. I mean, obviously, we don't want to burn a whole lot of cash. We've always tried to get them clean by Labour weekend, has always been our game, and then do another sweep before Christmas to make sure they're up and running. But we are, we have got that funding available, and that's what we want to do.
Can I make a suggestion? Because with winter coming on, those access ways from the surf clubs are probably not as well used as what they would be from Roberts Road and the Pipe, because surfing is 12 months of the year rather than just summer. And those Roberts Road area and the Pipe area down past the surf club are utilised probably more in winter than summer, because now we've got south swells and good surf down in those locations. So those areas have been way more frequented than the surf clubs.
Yeah, the surf clubs was, sorry.
I'm not saying anything against the surf clubs. Maybe they could be done as well, but I'm just mindful because in the past, we've got over our winter months, we've had beautiful surf down at the main beach and really hard access to get to, clambering over logs and debris and everything just to get into the surf. So, winter time is those locations are more used because of the southerly swells.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for your worship. Can I suggest that, so that's an operations matter in terms of our regular clean-up as opposed to a recovery matter. So what I might do is I'll get Michelle and the team to circle back to council and just send you a bit more information around what our planned schedules are.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I think you go through the presentation and then at the end there might be some questions. All good?
Yep, thank you very much.
Right. You can sit or stand, whatever suits you.
Thank you. So here we have our risk assessment here again, which is the same as what we've seen into the report. So fossil, our house elevation, as we've spoken about before, we are lifting houses to protect them from the flooding. The application for house to elevating is now open. We are looking at potentially having a shut-off date. We are going back to the people that haven't actually come back to us. We know that there's 147 homes, and the last week we were around 71 that have come back to us, so we are going to those ones to find out where they are at. The voluntary buyout, there, as we know, there's 54 houses now in that area and 12 mana whenua Māori land houses, which we are working through now. There seems to be a bit of a pathway coming through for those whenua Māori land houses, so we need to work through that. Commercial silt and debris, we've only got one applicant there. Sorry, there's 3 applicants there that we just need to finalise, but we've allocated all that money through that commercial silt and debris fund, which has gone well. Elevating, there's 147 houses there, and that's just a breakdown of where we are, with Mahaki doing 33 of them. And as I said, we've got to go back and get those, contact the ones that are in the red that haven't actually contacted us. These numbers change all the time. When this went to print, we were at 64. We are now at 71 people have actually got applications, and so it is changing every day. Cat 3 buyouts, this is where we are there, and there's only 3 homes that haven't started negotiation out of the whole 54 properties. By the end of this month, we will own 16 properties, so that's coming along really well. We're getting more come through every day. So again, when this went to print, but we have got agreement with over half the homes now to negotiate a deal with them, so that's working very well. And the positivity from the homeowners is strong. As I've said, we have got a couple of people that are going through a revaluation process, but we've got independent valuers helping us with that process, which is part of the policy that council signed off on. Just some risks, risks are around higher valuations for council. If we get higher valuations, we've got a budget there that council signed off to support this buyout, and at this stage we're looking at being within that budget. But obviously, as if we get more higher valuations that we've budgeted for, And really the next one is house lifting. If we got to find temporary houses for people to live in while we're lifting their homes, could slow us down on that project as well. Next steps is, demolition of houses, the 53 homes that we're, 4 homes that we're going to own. We've got to go through a demolition process there and go to tender and then work out what we're going to do with that land as we move through that. And rapid assessments are happening to verify our house elevating applicants. So the ones that have come back to us in our house lifting, we are going out and having a look to see if they are simple, medium or hard to lift, to get some help us with our budgets there and what that looks like. Flood resilience, this project's going along really well with the team, given that they were already underway. There's been a bit of a slowdown on with this project with the wet weather coming on. They got ahead of, they probably got another month's work in this project, given that it was a dry autumn. But Josh and the team have certainly got a long way there. You'll see that 21.6 million for Waipoa funding application has been approved in February, so they're working through that Waipoa part. The Karakia project, as I said, we've gone out and done some partial flood modelling out there with the community, and that's gone down really well. And they're now confirming that flood modelling to see what the sort of built solution will come up there. Flood resilience there, another $11 million funding application pending awaiting formal approval from the government. Risk contractor speciality, we do know that, as all this work comes on, that there's only a limited amount of those good machines that actually can do this work. So being able to deliver this work in a timely pace, I know that Josh himself and the team are thinking about who else they can work with to actually be able to complete this work. Resourcing is speciality. This is a real specialty sort of work that needs to be done, and getting the right capability to help support the team who are also doing their BAU and doing a lot of other work is something that we're working through. And adverse weather conditions. Obviously, as we get into the winter now, we can't construct stop banks, so that obviously slows us down. Next stage is to complete the upgrade on the Waipoa stop bank, that part there, complete the Kirkpatrick road raising, and then tender the next lot of stop banks. So the team will be working through that process. Tairāwhiti Road. Tim, would you like to step in and give the team a bit of an update on where we are with the operations at Tairāwhiti?
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Rod.
Just wait 1 second while we turn the volume up a bit. Okay, give it a go.
Okay. How's that?
Much better, thank you.
Right, great. So Tairāwhiti, the reopening project for Tairāwhiti Road has begun. It started earlier in May. However, it's been delayed a bit for understandable reasons, that being weather. The work involves shutting down the corridor during the day and repurposing Karakia Road for the residents to get in and out of that area. We've also worked with all large vehicle users in the forestry and primary industries to keep it to control their stock movements and other needs around this period of time. The scaling works and the demolition of the bluff number 3, which is overhanging bluff, works are scheduled. They've been delayed because of weather. The status today, I'm not sure if they're working today or not. But that's what's happening with Tairāwhiti Road. Parallel to that, we're continuing with our assessment of the 2 options that are being considered, those being a redirection of the road crossing the Hangaroa and the potential re-establishment of the present route. So both of those are happening in conjunction. So that's the update for Tairāwhiti Road at this point in time.
When will the review be completed?
Can people just speak up, please? Use your outside voices.
When will that review be completed of the 2 options?
When will the review be completed? My understanding is about September, I think.
You can just circle back with that information just to give us a...
Yep. I'll clarify that.
Thank you for that. Any questions of Tim in regards to Tēnei Roto? Thank you for that update.
Bridges and dropouts, Tim?
Yes, certainly. We've still got the challenge with funding for the Black Bridges, but looking to progress with St Ledgers, which is we are confident it will receive funding via the Waka Kotahi or NZTA. It meets the financial requirements for replacement, so we're confident that will get funding. So we're progressing with the design and a consideration of how we're going to deliver that particular bridge. Also, the Marta Bridge falls into that category as well. The remaining 6 bridges are a bit more problematic, and we're working through our the remaining 6 Black bridges are problematic. We're working through our finances, and a lot will depend on the responses we get from NZTA in September on that. The green bridges represent a relatively small package of around about $1 million, and we're north of 20% completed with those now. That's progressing really well, and the red and orange bridges are underway too, with a lot of repairs happening across those. For dropouts, the visual there is amended slightly since then. We've now redriven the route, and we have 450 remaining, approximately 450 remaining dropouts to be reallocated across, and we're getting packages ready for the new financial year to start that work. At present, with the dropouts, we're concentrating on storm-related ones where we needed to complete this financial year in order to get the FAR contributions from NZTA. So that's been our complete focus, and they've been, so there is some word out there that work has stopped. It hasn't. With dropouts, we've been continuing work and getting our new packages up for NZTA to consider for the new financial new year.
Okay, next one.
So challenges for us is stakeholder engagement and the pressure we're getting from communities. The one I've mentioned is the level of funding doesn't cover the cost for all bridges, so we need to consider what our options and levels of services might be, which we're doing in parallel. Some of those discussions cannot progress in lieu of NZTA making the decisions, because the communities all want a return of a like-for-like replacement of bridges, and so we've got to consider what will happen post-September depending on what NZTA say. Yep, so the dropout teams are focusing on the emergency works completion while we've got the funding available for that. We also are very exposed in our network, and that's a large risk. Sorry, you've jumped a page. Okay, yes, so I think I've updated for that page, sorry.
Thanks, Tim. Community-led project recovery plans. We've been out supporting the Tairāwhiti to develop these community-led plans. We've captured the aspirations of a lot of those all the communities out there. 20 of the plans have been shared with council. There's 6 more that we're working through that, and we're working through where they fit into the 3-year recovery plan and what can be fast-tracked through those plans, and then what the other aspirations and how Anita and the team are supporting those plans with the team. The timeline completion of the plans has been extended, as we've said. They sort of were coming in as we were going through our 3-year recovery, rolling out the 3-year recovery plan consultation. They've been, which sort of worked in positives and negatives a little bit, but people could see themselves in some of those plans. So the development of the Tairāwhiti community-led recovery plans, sort of the next step to bring them all together, testing the framework and track the plans across council and our regional operations group, and obviously look for philanthropic partnership and also central government, where central government agencies can help support those community-led teams. Woody debris, well underway. We're still working through the woody debris funding. We got another $18 million worth of funding the other day. We're looking at the prioritisation of that work and what's left, so we can actually go back to government and certainly be strong on our forecast. We're happy to share the forecast with you as the woody debris team work through this. But we're at the moment, last night I read, I think we're up to about 390,000 tonnes of woody debris has been removed from our beaches, and which is around, at about 1.4, is only around that 25 to 30% of what we had initially thought was up in our catchment areas. A lot of that has moved because we've had more rain events. Forestry contractors have been up there, farmers have moved some of themselves, so a lot of it has moved. So getting a good take of what's left up there is really important for us to help forecast and certainly go back to government on those areas.
There were lovely feedback on Radio Ngāti Porou when I was there on Monday. The work also happening at Te Kapa and those areas, those beaches that are not city beaches, but they're so important for people living on the northern bits.
So I think there's a lot of support for that around there. So that work's ongoing, continuously going. The beaches are a good time for us to get a little bit into the winter, especially those Te Kapa beaches and Tairāwhiti beach, which hasn't been was on the program, because you can work all year on the beach, this sort of weather. So we just need to, we're in the catchments. It's getting a bit wet and dangerous once we get a bit of rain, so it helps us.
Just got a question here, Rod.
Where has the woody debris been stored once it's been removed? Where's it going?
Most of it has been burned. Either high oxygen burning or just natural burning, especially on the beaches up there.
Councillor Thompson, thank you.
Sorry, I've got a couple of questions from the slide before. Just confirming the people who've already lifted their houses, that they can still apply for the funding?
Yes, there is retrospective funding, yes.
And just in regards to the buyout, are we on track with the money we've allocated? How are we sitting with that?
It looks like we're on budget of the $30 million that was allocated from council, yes.
Okay, and that last question, just on this woody debris. You say 390,000 tonnes of woody debris. Given the weather keeps moving the wood and they're burning it, how are we sort of gauging that? Is that an estimate, or where's that number come from?
Oh, so we LiDAR the wood, so it's actually done by LiDAR, and they can go out and work out volumes on beaches by flying them, by drone, and working out that. Dr. Murray Cave does a lot of work with that, and they come back with how much they reckon's on the beaches. So it's got some scientific guesswork, scientific work behind it.
Yeah, just associated with that, with the house lifting, I did hear of a person that's requiring house lifting, but the budget for their house lifting is quite a lot north of, I think the allocation is 75,000, is it?
Yes.
So is there going to be a lot of, this was well north of that, and are there going to be a few houses in that situation, or?
So the funding agreement is an average from the, so the funding agreement we have with central government talks about an average. So you will have unders and overs, but there will be a lot of properties that will be outside, and there will have to be, potentially, will have to be residents' contribution.
Councillor Gregory.
Thank you. I just might have missed something, but with regards to the Tineroto project in our paper here on page 295, it says the status has been raised from red to amber. Last month, funding has not been confirmed or finalised. But then I just heard Tim tell us that the project was all funded and
So there's a process there. Maybe, Tim, you can talk a little bit about the Tineroto process where, did you hear Councillor Gregory's question?
About funding? Yes, so I'm just trying to find the page. Sorry, what page were you on?
295. 295 on the chart, on the summary, the bottom.
Oh, right, yeah, Tineroto. That has been raised for red to amber last month. Right. So we've got allocated funding of 43 million, I recall, from Crown Infrastructure 45 million. Okay, from Crown Infrastructure Partners for the Tairāwhiti portion. Now that's the slips 1 and 2 portion of the road, and we've got NZTA assisting with the slip 3 or bluff 3. Sorry. The process we work through is getting ahead of that and then requesting that money to become available from CIP. Rod can probably talk a little bit about that process, but all engagement with them seems to be supportive still of that funding being available. So
through the chair, Tim, that refers to, there's two parts of funding for that project, Councillor Gregory. There's the CIP funding, which is locked away, and what that referred to was the unsurety of the NZTA funding to actually get on with the bluff 2 work, bluff 3 work, which is that. Because we have to, with NZTA, we don't actually know what we're getting to actually apply all the time, so that's where the uncertainty around that part.
We'll be watching that screen 2 o'clock today, telling you.
Won't be leaving.
That's where I will be. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just one more question on the woody debris. In terms of areas, a certain area given to a certain contractor, is there a agreed per tonne rate, or is it tendered? I'm just wondering how that works, given your...
So we went through an EOI process, and we're using contractors on rates. So we have done a balance of rates and what different contractors are charging us on rates across the region. So there was an early on EOI process that we went through with council. Sorry, expressions of interest. Expressions of interest.
Tonnage rate.
Yeah. So there was machine hours rates. So a lot of it's done on machine hour rates. And then we know how much tonnage is being moved. So we're working back to calculations on, what the volumes, what it's costing us per volume to move.
Okay, last questions. Where are we now? We're at woody debris. What else? How many slides?
About 2 more.
Right. So there we go. Councillor Telfer.
Just on the house lifting the stuff, you talked about the average, it's worked on an average cost of lifting those homes. Are we, originally, just correct me if I'm wrong, we were talking about there was going to be allocated people to do their work or to lift those homes? Or are we looking at the possibility of, this is just considering a lot of builders are with the tightening economy are a bit short of work. Is there has it been looked at, basically agreeing to a sum for these people and letting them get on and do it themselves?
I'll just ask that to CEO because her and I discussed it just yesterday.
Yes, we did through your worship. So in your initial policy that has been signed has 2 stages in there. There is an assessment that's required for the house, and the second one is around the delivery of the building. We went through a procurement process and no one wanted to, we didn't receive any tenders for that. We've been put a risk lens across it in terms of council's consents authority status, and what that would mean if we were to start kind of engaging builders ourselves to directly do that work. And so it's starting to look a lot more riskier than what was initially intended. So what the team are now doing are looking back at our options, what Auckland's doing by way of a grant fund to people to go and procure their own services, but also engaging with Toitu, Tairāwhiti, who have already lifted and are on track to lift 33 houses by the end of the year. So there's a number of options that we're currently just working through at this stage, just to ensure that we minimise risk but get that money out the door, because we have a time frame within which we need to spend it.
Then someone can use their own build. If we decide to go that way, someone will get the allocation and they can then use their private builder to do the work. So there'll be questions coming to you.
And through the chair, we hope to have that paper back to the CEO to share within the next few days.
Are all those 71 lifts consented?
Sorry, they will have to go through.
Are they all consented?
We haven't lifted 71. They're the ones through the chair.
What are you talking about?
They've applied for the fund. They've applied to be lifted. So they've come here. So yes, so every house will need to go through a building consent process. Just got a couple of slides here. Excuse me.
This will be available for councillors to take a look.
Yeah, you can take this. This one over here gives us an overview of all our funding that we've got in. I know Councillor Gregory, you've spoken about funding. So we will this is the funding that we've received, and this is what the Recovery Office is managing from a funding perspective. There, you'll see there that this has got the funding that the government's received for the Recovery Office, which is about 4.7 million. Some of that has to be applied for this year. It actually we invoice on the 1st of July for 1.8 million of that. You'll see the roading projects there that have got infrastructure, which includes emergency works from Whakakotahi of 64 million, which comes to 154 million. You'll see woody debris funding that we've got is 53.47 million across the region. That funding is now, we've got all that, received that money, and we're working through that. Small road projects there, which you'll be able to see there's about 38 million, 38.5 million. And then the fossil work there is around $43 million. And then the categorisation, flood protection, which is our stop banks and that flood protection work, is around $64 million there. And then down the bottom there, you'll see there that there's been more emergency works from Whakakotahi, and that will give you a running total of what the Recovery Office and the Recovery is funding to date. But please be aware that a number of those roading projects, we've still been working through the NZTA funding model, so we haven't claimed a lot of that infrastructure money from CIP yet, because we need to use as much emergency funding out of NZTA before we start to draw down on that money with the other monies available. So, so while it looks like big numbers and work, a lot of that funding hasn't not been claimed yet. It's still sitting in so we have meetings with government, and we provide them with project schedules, and then we provide them with claims on how we claim the money down. But we are using NZTA money as much as we can before we draw this money down.
I think you can't see, it's probably hard to see some of the writing here and the numbers, but if you're thinking about like a grand total work program of $388 million over the next couple of years, and you compare that to what we spend normally in any ordinary year in council, you can see that's a significant uplift in activity. So I think that's what this really shows you in terms of actually this is probably twice the amount, if not more, than what council will do in any, it is twice the amount, if not more, than what council would do in any given year. So you kind of, when you're thinking about that and you're thinking the proportionality around what's required to support that effort, I think this is a really good depiction of the money spent and why you need to kind of have that supporting back office function for the mass of the activities.
Because this is happening on top of BAU.
Yeah, your BAU work is still, isn't showing in here. This is just recovery work. And the last slide there just talks around funding for the Recovery Office and where we are from a funding perspective. You'll see there that since the cyclone, this includes internal costs too, so staff internally working on recovery. You'll see it's been about 2.8 million, and we have funds remaining to the 24th of April, 24 of 861,000. But we'll share this funding with you, and we are working with central government on trying to get some more funding for the Recovery Office itself to support that work program that we just saw.
The increased staff to support the work.
To support the work program, yep, and work through that. So we will share this with you all. Thank you.
Okay, questions or queries? This will be shared with councillors as well. Mr. Tini Thompson.
Yeah, is BAU work still on track? There might be more money in the recovery and shift over. Are we making sure BAU is still happening?
That's a question for Tim, but I would say yes, BAU is well underway in supporting.
Yes, we're on track with BAU.
Councillor Gregory.
Just with regarding the funding for the Recovery Office, is it 4.7 million, yeah? So, and that's just about running out?
Yes.
And so what would happen if you didn't get the funding, the next lot of funding, what would occur?
Oh, look, I think that what we're working on is how recovery and BAU work together. So Nadine's put a good transition, working through a transition plan to actually get as much, and Tim and the team are actually picking a lot of the BAU team up, supporting the work through that process. So that is actually trained now on what that looks like. And also we are working with central government on the basis of getting some more recovery office support money.
Nadine.
Yeah, just on that, so there was just over the last month or so, we have worked across to put in place a transition plan as Rod has outlined. What we're seeing now is that a lot of the kind of grunt work around the assessments that have been undertaken for the Cat 3 to 2P, 2C work has already been done. We're kind of coming off that hump around the negotiations, so a lot of that work is in train. So all that kind of intense assessment work that would have happened in the last kind of 9 months has come off the peak, so we can afford to drop some parts within that recovery office space. And so that combined with bringing into business as usual, which our business as usual is going to be recovery for the next 3 years, is helping bring some of the costs down. We will need additional central government support because we still are delivering some of the Cat 3 and 2P work, so we're hopeful that we can get some more money out of the C8 Crown Cyclone Recovery Unit to do that. If we're unsuccessful, then we'll have to look at other more drastic measures around how we can deliver the work program within a smaller budget.
Thank you. Any last questions, councillors? Oh, Rawinia, apologies.
All good. Actually, I just had a partai about the community-led recovery plans. Once we've got them all, then what? I understand what we're doing, what we're intending to do, the information we're trying to support and collate from communities to lead their own aspirations. Once we've got all of that, then what?
Is Anita in the room?
Yeah,
Anita's going to speak.
The Chair, there's a prioritisation process and the development of a matrix to assess what's in the plans. And that's going to be done with the Regional Operations Group for referral up to the Regional Public Service Group. So that process is underway at the moment.
And are we, as council, looking at the bits and pieces that we can address?
We are, yeah.
And that will also be communicated to the public service?
Yes.
And the communities?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, through your chair, your worship. They've also been shared with the coordinating executive group for civil defence, so that to try and get some cross-agency support on areas.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm happy to move this report by myself, seconded by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Carried. I close our meeting for. Thanks, Rod. We're going to take a break for 15 minutes. Then we're going to come back it's a public workshop on Streets for People, Grace Street. So we will start, say, 20 minutes past 11. So we're just going to take a quick break, grab a coffee, stretch our legs, and then we'll come back in 11:20. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Gisborne in the back. I see our lovely staff. I see our friends from TAT. I see the lovely Bessie from Uawa here as well, who's I see lovely Linda Stewart. Who else am I missing? Gina, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. So we've got some reading that councillors were given. And so what we're going to do is allow Dave. How many slides do you have, Dave?
There's a few there, but some of them I won't even talk to, I'll just show you.
So let's give Dave the opportunity to go through everything, because a question you might want to ask might be on slide number 12.
Exactly.
So let's give Dave the opportunity to go through, and then we're going to have an active discussion. Ka pai.
Just for clarification, this is a roading project, so it comes under our roading team, or under me specifically. I just want to thank Phil and his team for picking up Michelle. There was a little thing called Cyclone Gabriel that we all got completely with. So one of the things we were talking with the operations team before was there were a lot of projects that we had to stop straight after Gabriel, and because we just had to focus on repair. This was one of those projects that got reprioritised. And so the doing is happening at the moment. Yeah. Very briefly, Streets for People. Gisborne District Council was one of 13 councils that applied for this. And there's a lot of objectives, and I won't go for them all, but the reason we had a winning bid, and ours was unique, and why we beat other councils, is that it showed that we had a clear different model of delivery in terms that we had other people involved, the community involved. And so a lot of the other councils, this is a council-led project, we do it. This wasn't. This is where we had partners, I call them project partners. And what we also agreed is that it wasn't that they were going to toe the line. This is where council, we'll do our business and you'll follow our rules. It wasn't. We had to say, work with them together, say, you're your own entity, you do your own things, you've still got your things, but you're going to help us deliver this project. One of the things, and we'll talk about, it's changing. Well, there's things that are changing, and I'll forward this to you, but it was changes in how we try and work for walk and cycle. People may, if you can remember Crawford Road Cycleway, that's an example where we tried everything. We communicated house to house, went through, signs up, we even did a video of what was the proposal. We'll talk about funding as another issue. But the moment we put the cones up, we're on the front of the Gisborne Herald saying, what is happening with this project? And so that took us a lot of time. We had to pause, go back for more meetings, and then there were some slight changes that we had to do. We had to do a bidding process, and at the moment, look, it's been a good asset to the community. In fact, we've actually had a lot more people who are using Cycleway to walk in, but we had to go through this type of process, this disruptive process, to get to this final project. Okay. This is something for the Regional Transport Committee. I know it says there was big changes in the way we classify transport network. Now, I know at the regional RTC, we want to talk about the potholes. But what happens is government policy is working before it, and we look at this, what's this one network framework, we read the report, but it's saying that our streets, our roads, are just not there for traffic. There's classifications there, and I'll send it through, but it realises that people want more than just roads to travel on. Okay. These are different ranges of options and what categories, and I'll forward that to you, that it's just not the road. We've got to look beyond the road. Okay, so out of our new classification, Grey Street was called an activity street. Okay, and that's what the changes, and it recognises that there's some changes that we've got to do to connect, not just within the street, but those activities beyond the street to make this a better place. Okay, timeline. It started way back in 2000, November. Okay. And there's a time I won't talk about it, but it's been going on for close to three years. It's been a long process. And it didn't require a co-investment, but there's our partners there. Right. Oh, very briefly, there's the Grey Street consultation time frame, and there's what can be. Very briefly, I could just ask one of the members from the trust just to talk about that. Very briefly. Very briefly.
Thanks, Amy. Come and join us here.
Yeah.
You can see here because otherwise the people on the screens can't see you. So here's another seat here.
We bought some props really quick, so for people who probably read the Herald quite a bit, this is all the Heralds that have information about Streets for People, and it's since 2022 on the front page right there, there's something like 13 or 14 issues, so for all those that read the Herald.
Committee, you know the team?
So in regards to consultation, we also have hosted 2 big street parties down on Grey Street, thousands and thousands of people at both of them. One was to get people's ideas. We've had consultation at various places like the pizzeria. We've seen some people from here attend. There's been a number of public out there. We've also been on the radio, we've been on social media, we've been in the newspapers. And from that we've done lots of surveys. So first of all, to find out what people wanted, how they wanted it, what changes they want. Did they want change? Only 4% of people surveyed wanted it to stay as is. And there was a number of surveys, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but there was a number of people surveyed. That survey was also out in public, so you could come on any time and do it. Afterwards there was a link, you went on and did it.
Public roadshow for a good week. It was in the newspaper, was on social media, got really awesome cut through with that, great feedback. Of course, you can't have the light without the dark, so the ones that we're against, hats off to all the ones that we're against for coming out in person and shaking a hand and actually just having a good talk and agreeing to disagree and being made aware that this is a trial. So, yeah, which is really awesome.
Yeah, it's just a reminder, how much infrastructure have you brought into the district, do you think, from all the different projects?
So at the moment we've got over $6 million in assets that we've delivered to the East Coast community, if you include Mar here, because we've got a playground down there, an all-weather court going in, 2 pump tracks, one in Gisborne, one at Urawa, got the skate park in town.
A bunch of athlete facilities, over 300 grand's worth of facilitation for funding for athletes to travel overseas, and then a whole bunch of Cyclone Gabriel sporting distribution and aggregation as well. So, yeah, around about $6 million.
7 slides to go. Good. So with these projects, there's always concerns. Okay. At the moment, we're officially lodging them as RFSs, and I've seen them, and they're the common themes. I won't go through, but and we've got questions and answers. So, we'll put through. Oh. And so we'll reply to them. One of the things is with this project is that there's always this bedding in program, okay, and then we do start the monitoring program, and that's where you really need it to go through a period for this bedding. It needs to go through a summer, because that's when you've got a lot of interactions with the skateboard park, the pump track, other people, visitors coming in. And we've had concerns of, look, it's going to be busy during Christmas. Yeah, well, it always is going to be busy during Christmas. It's going to be a busy period. How this works, and you need the community to try and adjust to these changes, good or bad. So one improvement we have decided, yes, we are lodging these as official RFSs, so we will have a record. There will be, we realise that there's some improvements have to be done in formal monitoring going out there. So these, we've already had a safety engineer go through, that's part of the funding requirements. And also once it's finished, there'll be a post engineer design to go through safety below. Probably one thing I haven't mentioned is this money is earmarked for walking and cycling. It cannot be used for pothole repairs. It can't be used for other projects, and vice versa. Pothole repair money can't be used for walking and cycling projects. It's very clear. The funding criteria is strict. So the work we're doing down at Mairatini, that can't be used to fix other areas. It's earmarked for those. And then maybe that's something we realise, we'll need to go back to the community about funding allocations and how they can be used. Bridge money can only be used for bridge money, all those types of things. This project is funded by NZTA, it's already come through. Part of the agreements with signing our agreement is we do have to go through this evaluation process. Now, our funding partners have been very, very, very good to us, with other things. And in the agreement, it's pretty clear that if we decide to stop, then those costs going forward will have to come back to council. That was the way it was signed up. You can't opt. And Streets of People is one of those things. It's adapted. You need to go through the process of that monitoring. One of the questions is how did it get funding increased? And there's a legitimate answer. So when we first did the project, it came through the scope. After the consultation with Grey Street, it was 350 was the original part. Then once after the consultation, it came back. It's come up to 900,000. We're very fortunate that 90% of that is NZTA. We wouldn't have gone that far if NZTA hadn't supported us. They said there were other issues that came through. So yes, there is a cost increase from the local share of council from 35,000 to 90,000. So that's a $55,000 increase. We've been able to reprioritise that from other walking cycle projects that haven't started. So yes, should that be made more transparent to the councils? Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something we'll go through. The Uawa costs still haven't been formally, we're still in that firming up process. That shouldn't be. The Uawa consultation timeframe, I've only got 2 more slides to get going. Yes, maybe you could...
Come on, Bessie, come and talk to us about... So Bessie is our Uawa cycling guru queen, who knows it all. Bessie, thank you for joining us.
And thank you so much for this quick opportunity to talk on behalf of our project, and thank you all for your support to date regarding our cycleway. And you know, this is part of the bigger picture. It's a big dream for us, and you know, honestly, we're so grateful for this money, this opportunity that's come to us, and we need to really run with it. And I've hit a stumbling block, and it's come down to really car parks, and it's 1 on this side and 3 on that side. And it would be such a shame to lose this, because we don't get this opportunity to actually create a whole new look, a whole new feel, to try to change minds that are growing. You know, the minds that are growing, we want to capture them and say, this is another way to do it. And on the way we're educating them, you know, like healthy living, all of that stuff that we all know about. So I think we're up to 700, almost 800,000, because Wakakotahi came in and saw that you couldn't do this on a state highway for 350, and they've done us, you know, it's a wonderful plan as it is. I hope we can go with it, and we've got another meeting coming up next Wednesday, so we're just going to get in there and say, look guys, let's take it, and then we can build from there. We can build the dream and finish it. So thank you all very much for all the support you've given to date, especially you and Dave and Kaimona. Those guys have been our mentors, and we've tried to follow them. Little things have gone wrong along the way as far as community events. We didn't have any. And that was really, it's okay, you know, but it's not okay. So I've had to go out on my bike and touch base with all the community, and I have, you know, I have. And it's my community. It's my tūranga waiwai, so it's all good. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more slides to go.
2 more slides, that's it. Oh, I've already talked about the monitoring. Technically it should be 2 years, but they're saying, like, if the team have gone back and said we need at least a minimum of 12 months.
So Dave, on that.
That's it.
Last slide.
Oh.
I'm done.
Don't tell me 2 and then it's 1.
Oh no, sorry.
Just kidding.
I blanked.
So what we are going to do, and there's no rush, people can ask more than 1 question. I just want everyone to be mindful that there are 10 or 12 people around the table that want to ask questions or contribute. So just be mindful, but I'll open the first round. We'll start with you, Teddy, and we'll work around the table and then go from there. Thank you. Just speak up so that everyone on the recording online can hear as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. Apologies. We were given the invite to look at this project at the pizzeria, and I think only 1 or 2 councillors took up that opportunity, and it's easy to come now in hindsight. You probably should have had more input back then, so I apologise for that.
Don't apologise to me, because actually
caught up for a coffee after the fact, where I probably should have been engaged earlier. You just made the comment, if we stop the project, costs go back to council. Do you mean if this project doesn't go ahead, council wears 900k?
No, there'll be the disestablishment costs, and there's an expectation to do the monitoring costs, so that will have to come back to GDC. So we've got about another, like I said, if the weather plays right, we'll be finished. The physical works will be finished by next week.
Can you just leave the slide on that have the map? You show the layout, the top. You know, you've had it.
Okay. There's some maps that
Yeah, but just that is that one. Just keep that, because I had a catch up with a gentleman yesterday who's very upset, and he actually sat down for 2 hours. But once I printed this out for him and he saw it, he said, well, because people don't realise it is still just being put together. So did you say 2 weeks before the layout is finished?
Yeah, we're hoping to be finished by next week. If the weather goes right, we'll be good.
Okay. Thank you. Teddy, can I move on? We'll come back. Okay, Tony.
So when I attended the briefing at the pizzeria, and I knew there was 22,000 vehicle movements a day on that road, and I thought, this is the stupidest project that possibly could ever do. I went along to the hui. I spoke to the Waka Kotahi engineer they had present, who had been involved with the Christchurch one, and after spending probably an hour speaking with him, I completely changed my view as to what the potential for our community from this project is. Change in the behaviour of people down there was massive resistance, and then I think it was dropped something like 20,000 people a day now walk or cycle through the roads that were changed and altered under this style of project. The implications, the positives for the environment, the positives for community was just phenomenal. And it wasn't until I was educated about it that I was able to make an informed decision. I've been through the space. I think it's great, and I really fully support the project, the trial. The last slide you had there said it's been recommended the trial's reduced to 12 months. Who's recommending that it's reduced to 12 months when the Waka Kotahi says it should be for 2 years?
Oh, I think that was me, because I think it was just trying to say this.
Well, I would suggest we follow the proper protocol. If it's a 2-year trial, do the 2-year trial. We might have an anomaly where summer has something and our numbers are affected and we don't get a true reflection of how it's going to impact. I met a guy last year who told me in Vienna people hate change, and after change has been implemented, they say, why wasn't this change made earlier? You know, commuters are always resistant to change, but this is not the end of the world. We're not closing Gladstone Road from one end to the other end. Yes, there is some impact, but people need to learn to think around things differently. And so I think we should just soldier on and see where it lands.
Thank you. Councillor Cranston. If you're not ready to talk, you can just tap someone else. Go, Councillor Gregory.
Okay.
Yep, I want people to be able to ask what they want to ask.
I just wondered if I spoke to Linda Stewart about this project last week, and she gave us a little bit of information about how some of the other projects had gone, like in Napier, and the resistance versus how it turned out in the end. And I just wondered if it might be helpful if she could give us a little bit of that information here for all of the councillors. And also, I just had a question with regards to the Central Business District. I understand there's some funding coming up for Streets for People, and is there 450,000 for the main street? Is that right, or am I wrong?
I think that's business cases. I might have to get all the details for you, but specifically not for this project. I think it's to look at the whole CBD as what the future of the CBD is.
Okay, thank you. And so lastly, I've also received a number of emails, phone calls, and I took my partner to one of the consultations at just outside here on a farmers market day, and heard the wrath of what some of the people are thinking, well, were thinking, about blocking off Tairāwhiti Street. But I do ask that people give it a go and let us see how it goes, so that then we can fully say it worked, it didn't work. But at this stage, I don't think we can stand up and say it didn't work. Thanks.
Linda, are you happy to share what you shared with the Regional Transport Committee in regards to Streets for People in other regions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for allowing me to join in and listen, team. Much appreciated. We did discuss it briefly at the Regional Transport Committee as part of the committee and also just informally. And I think there's a couple of things in here that Dave's touched on as well, is that when you embark on these changes, the construction period and disrupting how your community normally uses streets always feels painful. And change is quite a challenging process, especially when a street's been used in a certain way for many, many years. And the construction can feel hugely disruptive, especially in stages until you see it in its entirety. What we tend to experience is the first few months post-implementation can also be a little bit lumpy as people get used to the new markings, changes to parking, having to stop to allow people to cross the road. We find that even when we put in things like median barrier in a state highway, that it takes people time to adapt their behaviour and get used to a new environment. Once you're through those kind of first few months post the construction completion, it does tend to settle down. And that's why the 24-month monitoring period is really important, because that allows you to see what does truly work, what your community and all of the users of that road embrace, and what maybe in reality needs a little bit of tweaking. Now, the example that I spoke about was the first round for Napier City Council, and they had put in, quite a number of, we call them raised safety platforms now. Back then, I still used to call them speed bumps, to slow traffic down. That was the primary objective. And I don't think that the mayor or the chief executive would mind me sharing, different chief executive now, just how problematic that was. The amount of feedback at any public hui or right through to the supermarket about it was vociferous and vehement in opposition. And now we're a few years on, it's probably the most celebrated thing that the council have ever done. They're looking at how they do more of it. They're inundated with calls about, can we have? And it's just, as one of your councillors said a moment ago, there's two things that people don't like: the way things currently are and changing them. And trying to get through that process, especially when you're frontline in your community, is really challenging. But the team will have a number of examples of other councils, like Christchurch is another one, where the initial part is really challenging. I would never dismiss that. But if you can stay with it, you can end up with something quite special in your community. Thank you.
No. Yes. Yeah, it's been really difficult process, this, because I feel I have been so badly informed along the way, and now we're all copping it big time from the public. I remember visiting Japan a long time ago and saw a bare section that had these posts on it and signposts, and I asked the guy what it was, and that was part of a consenting process. And the signpost described everything that was going to happen to that section. So people would walk past it on a daily basis, saw it, and those signs had to be up there for 6 months or something, and everybody knew what was going to happen. Now, we didn't really do that with this. I think if we'd had a big sign down there showing the picture, we would have had this negative feedback a lot earlier. Would have maybe been able to counter it with some positivity, and we wouldn't be in the sort of sticky situation we're at. My big worry is the bus and the distance that you have to walk, and if it's raining, it's going to be horrendous. Imagine picking your grandmother up from the bus, and you couldn't get one of those car parks for one reason or another, and you have to walk all the way down here in pouring rain. It's ill thought out. Now, someone suggested that we need to move the bus terminal.
It's moving it.
Right, okay, so let's inform the public that there is a bigger plan here, and that the eyesight is moving and the bus station is moving, and engage everybody in the bigger picture so that we can then tick off some of these things that don't look so good.
I
I just wanted to check because there was a big sign up, this massive sign blown up like a big, was it at the skate park?
Two.
There are two of these massive signs up. It's been up for months and months, or years.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see them.
It's been up for years.
No, not years.
Months.
Yeah, it's been up for a
Okay.
while, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And there are banners that have been up in different places, that it's been at council, at people calls, they've rotated around in public places, so people could have seen them with a full description.
But it is also fair to say, you know, sometimes you are aware of stuff, but it's only once the work starts and you realise then it is happening in your front yard or where you usually commute that people then actively engage. So it might have been, or people might have been aware of some workshops, but maybe didn't engage because they weren't aware that it was maybe something that is going to be directly. And I've spoken to the bus service as well, Mr. Wee. So, and Dave has spoke to him as well.
Corporate Road was exactly the same.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you know, that's human nature as well. I might be aware of stuff that the government is doing, but it's only once you see it happening that you realise, oh, it is really affecting me. So, yeah. Just a telfa.
Where do I start? Basically, one of the most concerning things from, I've just received another one now, emails coming through from businesses that weren't consulted, and especially down Tairāwhiti Street, which seem to be part of the area that's being impacted the most at the moment. Also, businesses, a group of 3 businesses yesterday that you know, have got 44 staff between the 3 of them, and there's 42 odd car parks being removed. And like they're saying, those businesses don't go and park there in the morning and leave at night. They are in and out all day. And finding a car park when you're actually a business that is moving all day in and out is one of the biggest things. And probably some of the safety concerns that people have raised around proximity to exiting the roundabout with the parallel parks and whatnot. So those are the main ones. But the biggest one for me is that we started with a project that was 350,000 and we're sitting at 900,000. And so miraculously we just found $65,000 that, you know, that's only one place that comes from is at a rate. So the other one is that people say, oh, it's all right because NZTA are paying 90% of it. Well, where on earth do people think NZTA money comes from? Taxpayers. So it's coming out of everybody's pocket. So I struggle to see where this increase from that, if I was looking at doing a project and an increase from 350 to 900 for a temporary thing, I would be pretty horrified. And temporary to me would seem like you don't put concrete structures in. That would be removable structures. So for something that just started the other day on the, and we're due to finish it next week, $900,000 seems a huge amount of money.
Can you just talk about the funding and what it's used for in the monitoring and just clarify that it is not to just paint the road?
No, it's not just, there's ongoing monitoring. And also to come back, any emails, please just forward them to the business if you can, because then we can log them so we know and we get that common theme, please. Because it's unfair that you're taking them, but let's put them in and we can use it as part of the monitoring and feedback process as well. Someone will get back to them. Yeah. So yes, the 900 is just not the physical works. There was a lot of design and all that goes for it, and then there's going to be post-monitoring and also, you know, some of the concrete structures. Yes, they were planter's box. They were the bulk of the work is being delivered by local contractors, and that was concrete work. Aikens, got the work for that. So we've at least tried to make it the bulk of it, just to help support local contractors in this time. It's tough.
Councillor Foster, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've had a lot of feedback from people, and I understand that no one likes change. I am a little bit concerned that maybe the consultation process, I mean, there's a lot of people saying, businesses that say they haven't been consulted, and we're saying that they are, so I'm not quite sure what has happened in that realm. If a business says it hasn't been consulted and they've just found out now that they've lost all these parks, then that is a bit of a concern. But at the end of the day, I have, and I've been on council long enough now and seen the vision from river to the ocean concept of Grey Street. I think we've kind of done ourselves a little bit of a disservice because we haven't put a full vision of what that street is capable of. You know, I've heard in the past, we're going to do this first and then there's going to be all this other gym activity, rock walls and all this kind of stuff, free things that could be possible along that street. So I would have really liked to have seen maybe a holistic view of what we're trying to achieve at the end of the day. This is just a stepping stone to get to that vision. And that would have, I think that would have probably helped a lot because we have talked about this for a long time. You know, we've got a unique situation where we've got a street that starts from a river and ends at the ocean. There's not many places in the world, in New Zealand even, that have that. So to utilise this, I've been involved with a few of the different consultation processes, and I'm still supporting what's been done. I just think that if we had a really good and some visual of how that whole street could look like, just some ideas that this is just a stepping stone. I think that will help the process a lot more. Yeah, but we're going to cop a lot of grief over the next few months. Hopefully that won't die down. We've committed now. We've kind of past the point of no return, really. It's always the same. You don't know what's going to happen until it's actually there. All of a sudden you can't turn right out of Karakia Street or left, and people are So anyway, I'm still prepared to take the flag and just see the outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Wharehinga.
So, thank you very much, Your Worship. My issue isn't the concept of the project itself. Fundamentally, we all agree to the principles of bikes and safety for rangatahi, etc., etc. You hear that widely in our community. You'll be hard pressed to find people who don't agree with this in principle. Also, as Councillor Foster mentioned, that the concept of ocean to CBD, ocean to river is great. And when you hear that, and when you speak about that in that principle point of view, people love that concept, right? Most of our community will love that too. We as council enact things that some of our community find unpopular all the time. The thing is, though, is that we actively engage with the biggest dissenters of those projects. And I haven't gotten the sense that that has been fully done here, only because we haven't been as close to it as we have been with other things. You're right, Dave. Like in regards to Crawford Road, I was intimately involved with Crawford Road. There was kickback. And I don't know if you remember, but also some of the comms that you had talked about previously didn't come to residents, and I know that because I lived in Crawford Road and I didn't receive some of those comms, and I was a deputy mayor at that time. What I do remember of Crawford is that the community met several times prior to installation, and we as council changed our plan based on their feedback. We provided easier off-street parking. We were also going through our heavy traffic bypass at that time, so we banned heavy traffic from Crawford Road. It was an overarching view in regards to safety, and that was the platform that residents could have that conversation about, right? We as council also committed to another couple of things in terms of Crawford Road around street lighting and also planter boxes for when the school gets there, just signalling that to some of the councils who weren't around here at that time. So that project hasn't actually fully come into completion. The reason why we were able to land Crawford Road Cycleway was by fronting up to the most affected part of our community so they could feed into that plan, and then we adjusted. Yes, there were some disgruntled people, but the benefit of bringing them all together was that it was the residents of Crawford as a whole that then said, you could see all of us, and you could see that there was a majority going, this is actually really sensible. Let's do this thing. We can all just do this thing together. And then it was a conversation between neighbours of, no, this is good, this is good, you know, that kind of thing. And then we ended up bringing ourselves along for that journey of saying yes to the Crawford Road Cycleway. I've also been contacted by Uncle Wee, and I guess again in terms of the distance from us as elected members to this project, I don't know if Uncle Wee had been asked first, or if we had made any kind of adjustments in regards to that. I don't know if the residents of Karakia were engaged with, or what that plan looked like, in the same way that I know what Crawford was like because I was there for those meetings, you know. And that's why this project has been an issue for me. It's actually less about the project and more about the process, I guess. Because, like I'd said at the start, we are a council, we enact things that some of our community find unpopular all the time. It's the nature of us to hunt those people down, like the Uncle Wees, like some of those people that live in Karakia, knock on their door, take a grilling from them in regards to that thing to try to help bring them along the journey of what I spoke about in terms of the principles at the start. Because I still agree with essentially the principle of what we're doing down there. It's just really hard to bring a community, if you've already pushed a community apart on something, it's really hard to bring them back. And that's my big concern in regards to this. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
I'm just going to ask, we're going to come around again.
First time yet.
Oh, there you go, you go. You go.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. We're all aware of the resistance to change and the fear of the unknown and that, and it's happened with every project we've ever done. And most of them have got a positive outcome. The most comparable project to this is the Inner Harbour project, which had heaps and heaps of resistance as it went along. But like Councillor Wharehinga says, we need to get the process right, and that's where we've fallen over in this process. As councillors, we're the ones that are getting it in the neck, we're the ones that are getting the emails, we're the ones that are stupid, and it's because of the process. Our involvement with the process was way back last year where we were told it's going to be a $350,000 project, nothing was going to be permanent, it was going to take 4 days to construct, and there would be no council contribution. That was our only formal paper in front of council. The next time we heard was at Regional Transport, where we were told, we weren't asked or consulted or had any part of the decision, we were told it was going to be $900,000 and council was going to contribute 10% and it was going to happen. Well, yeah, that's kind of not good process because at the end of the day, people are on the phone to me saying, and the first thing I said, well, it's a Wakakotahi project and it's going ahead. And the first thing people say to us, but that's a council road, so we should have been involved in the process. And we could have then got behind it and had that support and had the answers when we got all this criticism. Like Councillor Foster says, there was a long-term vision for that River to the Sea project as a boulevard, as an avenue, and a lot of us can remember visions of it going down there. This could incorporate into that vision. I've got no two ways about that, but we need to see that whole vision. At the moment, it's kind of like just a block that's appeared out of nowhere, and how it got prioritised to be happening now when all those consultation meetings that I've been to over the last 2 months or so, it was all about prioritise the work that needs to be done and be careful with your spend, make sure the money's efficiently spent. The driver for this is said to be safety. What was the safety concerns in that area that, as a safety driver, this was the project that went right to the top of the priority to happen. Now, that's sort of stating negative for this, and it's really difficult because of the noise that we're getting at the moment is so hard on us at the moment that we've just done this really dumb thing, which we've had absolutely no involvement in. It's been thrust upon us. So I think, the people do need to understand that if the process is right, councillors do need to be involved in the process because we are the ones that can get in behind it as opposed to the ones that are getting the flack that somebody is perceived to have got it wrong when it's just not fully understood. So, you do need to be sensitive what's happening to council at the moment on this project, and I don't think that sensitivity out there. What is the difference between temporary and permanent? As Councillor Tairāwhiti said, I've seen the budget. There's a lot of concrete in the budget. You know, what is the change between this being a temporary construct and a permanent construct? What happens? You know, there's no way that you're going to go out and rip all the concrete out and say, oh, it was just temporary anyway. It's a massive misspend of money. So, yeah, so there's concerns there. But with having said all that, it is about council processes, not about the people doing the project. It's about us getting our process in here right so that we can meet those arguments when we hit them. So as far as the project side of it goes, congratulations, you know, it can be a great project for the town, but we do need to just get that balance of getting our processes right so that we don't get this outcry that we've got at the moment. And it's a huge outcry, and it's on our heads, you know? So that's all I'm saying.
Have councillors seen this or done this? Have you interacted with this on the participate page? It's the one you just asked earlier, what if we can see a view? I know you were referring to the whole boulevard, but I'm just saying, if you just do participate GDC, and there are different views in there as well, when you go down, this one, it also shows you on this layout where different things are, but that other one is what was used for consultation as well on the participate page. So I've got a few practical questions, Dave, that I want to ask, because I'm used to getting robust feedback. If I can put it, well, that's my job. That is why I'm here, is to get robust feedback and also bringing the voice of the people back and saying these are the concerns raised. I walk over to you. You know, you and I have had some robust discussions as well, and one thing I want to ask, and which I think we need to make clear about this process, is what I already see somewhere in my reading. I did see that we've made a few tiny adjustments. Once the safety engineers come in the next couple of weeks, they do take a look and say, yes, this is done the right way. Yes, you can manoeuvre out of there. This is a minimum risk, or whatever. If there are stuff brought to our attention in the next, what I'm asking, if this goes after 2 weeks, it's all complete, the community start using it, get used to it, because it's a big thing to get used to it. I think once the whole layout is there, people only get an idea. If after 6 months we see this is obviously not working there, can you make an adjustment then? Or do you have to wait for 12 months, what you said earlier? Or do we have to wait for 2 years? What is the process in that regard? Who does that audit, and where does the decision making sit?
So if the safety engineer comes back and says that needs to be changed, that will be changed straight away. And then, but if there's some obvious stuff, we still would like to do the monitoring. If there's some obvious stuff that everyone can see and it's been raised, then yes, we can do some tweaking. If it's, I don't like it, well, it's a different thing. Okay, but we're not going to be that fixed to that, but it does need to go through that monitoring, that period of time.
When you say it does need to go for that period of time, do you mean a year, or if in 6 months, as you do the monitoring?
If there's something obvious that comes up within a month that was just more safety related, that will get changed.
Because to me, one of the concerns I had, and it might be minor and you might have accommodated for it, that if you do slow traffic down coming out at the roundabout, that at certain times traffic are slowed down in Grey Street and it backs up into the roundabout. So I was just thinking, if we go ahead and see stuff, do we have the opportunity then to feed into some process, and what is the timeline of that process?
Yeah, so one of the things we're looking at is part of the project cost is there's going to be cameras that can actually monitor things like that, so we can actually see the impact, because the technology is there, and so we can do that to physically go. If someone does say it's this, put the cameras there and say yes, they're right, or okay, it's a peak time, it's for a certain period. So we're trying to get that evidence base.
And then just my last question before I pass back to Councillor Thompson. I know you showed us all the Gisborne Heralds and the print. In the last little while, have there been some visuals and these types of maps in the Gisborne Herald communicating with the community the final layout, or because if you just read some words, it doesn't make sense. It's only once I show you this that you do have a different look. Or like the one that you have up here, I think that is a very powerful picture. So what I'm asking is, are we actively communicating visuals, not just planting some stuff around town as you consult, but now that the process has started and we realise there is some people who are really concerned, that we proactively take this comms approach to make sure, I don't know who's in charge of comms or how that work, but I just want to ask you to make sure this is front and centre, that people can then see that and maybe know that it is still happening, and then also that the public know feedback are welcome and it goes into the RFS, which will be part of the auditing feedback before decisions are made.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got heaps of noise on this. I've lived in the area for over 40 years, so I pretty much know most people down the street there. For me, I live over Whitaker Street now, so I don't have a business down there, so it doesn't really affect me personally, but for me, I'm the voice for the people, and I'm their voice. Can I read the letter? I sent a letter last night. You may not have seen it. I just want to read that out. Firstly, I bike almost daily, as do my kids, and I'm 100% all for cycleways and safe biking passages. In saying this, I do not believe safe cycleways should be or need to be at the expense of commercial business, nor should they severely impact traffic congestion. Everything is about balance and balancing the needs of the community. As many of you are well aware, I've raised concerns right from the get-go. In the September 22 meeting, where this came to council as a one-page noting paper presented by Tairāwhiti Adventure Trust about the blocking of Karakia Street being a very commercial thoroughfare and the negative impact that would have on commerce and congestion, having lived in the area for over 40 years, hence knowing the area well. This area was predominantly a commercial area used daily by transport companies, couriers and tradespeople. I raised the idea of potentially putting a roundabout at this intersection. Andy raised there would be need for robust consultation. Arnie mentions what about the businesses in the area that had to use these roads. Not yesterday, the day before, I spent most of the day visiting businesses in Grove Street, Karakia Street, as well as some on Awapuni Road, Stanley Road and Inner Street. 100% of the businesses I visited were upset with the Grey Street project. Some businesses less than 50 metres from the Grey Street, Karakia Street intersection told me they were not even aware that this project was happening, nor did there appear to be any sort of letter dropped to residents. The questions I have is probably been answered, how this project went from 350k to 900k, 100% government funded, how individual affected parties were consulted with and their concerns dealt with, how the project went from temporary, we will work with local business on design. If in a month or so things aren't working, we can uplift and move again. That's the beauty of this. As we always said, from day one, this is just a trial. To road markings, concrete fixtures, 2-year trial, and into the last regional transport meeting agenda to become permanent. So just asking what parts of the trial are working well, what are working not so well, and what changes can be made, and what options are available as councillors. I do realise people struggle with change, and some people are negative, but I feel the concerns raised by affected business are legitimate and need to be properly addressed. Just on that, so for example, the concrete place is just down the road. They're on time constraints with the concrete. Now they're going to have to go to congested Childers Road and get caught in traffic. You've got a plumbing place on Awapuni Road that makes 12 trips a day to Plumbing World. Instead of turning right there, now they need to go around the block, get caught in traffic. The thoroughfare from Karakia Street, there's only one that's between Bunnings Trade
and Bunnings and the tradies use that all the time, the couriers use that all the time. Not only do they need to go around the block, Childers Road was congested, it's only going to be more congested now. So I think there's just not the balance with commercial business. When you look at the government policy statement, economic growth and productivity, you're not promoting economic growth, value for money. Yeah, I think, yeah, I just think we need to consult with these businesses. Clearly, that they haven't been consulted with, and there needs to be a balance.
Can I just chip in there and ask, because we didn't do the consultation, Tairāwhiti Adventure Trust, can you just quickly come to the front and talk about consultation that was done specific with business?
I don't know if you've all read the little handout, we just put a little flyer that's got on the back of it also. I just want to mention that this Streets for People project aligns with a range of adopted GDC strategy and policy plans, and they all relate to the 2024 one. So, I get there's one, the economic one, but this is actually in line with what the council have asked for. Their objectives, the strategic objectives. Anyway, back to consultation.
Shed some light on that for us, please.
In what regard? Sorry.
So what I want to say, I saw from your stuff that you've had lots of community drop-ins and right in the beginning I attended
business
one of those
ones
as
too.
well.
We've had business.
So to me, can you just elaborate, because say I've received, say, 12 emails from businesses in that area who are directly affected, who say they have not heard about it or had any feedback. So can you just shed some light on that?
Is that from the actual business owners? So what there seems to be is we've met with all the business owners, but it's some of the staff that have not, the owners have not then gone on to say to their staff, and they haven't had staff meetings to say, hey, we went to a breakfast, these are the new plans. Like an example is Think Water. We went and met with Matt Kemp there. He was great. He was like, oh, look, I went to council and asked if we could also put a pool in as well. So we had this great hours meeting with him. Then one of his staff reached out to one of you to say we didn't know anything about it. But they had. We'd met with the business owners. We've invited them to breakfast. We've met with all the Grey Street residents. We've done it twice. So from the initial consultation from, hey, what do you guys want? Do you want change? What do you think of change? Right through to the final design saying, hey, and that's when Ocean Dental came to us and said, we want a disability park, mobility park, sorry, because we've got older clientele. So we went back and put those things into the project. It was a great time for change.
Any more questions? Yeah, Teddy.
You're just on that consultation, spoken for businesses. It appears from Childers Road back and from the bridge back. Oh, sorry, Grey Street. No one on Kahuria Street was spoken to until after the project. That's the feedback I'm getting. No couriers were spoken to. So yes, the ones on Grey.
Just tell me where the couriers are. Sorry, on Kahuria, right? Are they right there?
They're the inner streets, right? That's their thoroughfare. So yes, the feedback I've received, the ones on Grey Street up until Childers Road, not past Childers Road. That concrete place said they weren't consulted, but it's the ones, to me, it's the ones on Kahuria Street that are more affected by this, because it's Kahuria Street that's blocked off, and it appears the ones on Kahuria Street are the ones that weren't spoken to. I agree, the ones on Grey Street said yes, they were consulted, but not the ones on Kahuria Street, but to me, they're the ones more affected.
So there was one that was missed on that, I'm sorry, and that was the tile person that's obviously that you've been dealing with.
More. I've spoken to the owners, and that's the replies from the owners. I'm happy to give you later.
Discuss these. Look, I'm sorry, we went along Grey Street with all the plans and everything. Kahuria, they did have a letter drop, and L'Oreal from Council and Phil, I believe, went and actually saw those businesses.
After the fact, I think.
And the works hadn't started at that stage, no. It was before it all started, they went to let them, to advise what was happening, and that was the time to obviously we're a group, we're all volunteers here, like we haven't been paid a cent, we've not received any money from any other project, so there's only so many volunteer hours. Homeowner and myself have worked 30 to 40 hours a week in a voluntary role, trying to, meet people, free breakfast, doing it all, so there's, definitely an area we probably improved on, for sure, but we couldn't do everything. There was letter drops, they could have gone to the council website, they could have read the newspaper, they could have come to any of the consultation days. We've had them down at the skate park, at the eyesight. We've been on site, we've had drop-ins, we've had breakfasts. Like, I don't know what else you can do to get people to come along. I've emailed all the councillors here at the table to come to things as well. So it's not, I don't know how you get people into a room to say, come to this to give your feedback. Thank you.
Was there a question? Have you got a vision of what the whole street could look like? Like what we talked about in the past. I mean,
yeah, like ultimately that would be like the whole street, like all connect town to the sea. I don't know if I'd have the energy to carry on and do it. I hope that you all do. It's been a pretty big task getting this one down. And thank you, like L'Oreal, Phil and Dave, like it's been amazing. It's a huge team effort gone into it. And it's when you're working with different teams in Whakakutahi that like they're amazing. Everyone's had, it's not just one or two people getting all the stuff done, you've got to fit the engineers in and people's timetables, and I don't think I just want to see the trial go in, to be fair, like once it's in, you can understand it. It's a work site at the moment. There's road cones everywhere. I was late to get to this meeting because there was road cones everywhere, so just let the trial be, give it a go, give it time, drive down it, walk down it, bike down it, and give us some true feedback, put it through the proper processes and be like, we can change it because it is a trial.
Okay, any last questions, Councillor? No, I'm not, you guys are not here to be peppered by questions. I just wanted to...
Broad shoulders now.
Yeah, all good. No, that's okay. Do you have a specific question?
I don't have a question, just something to say after.
No, thank you. Thank you. Josh and then Colin.
I do want to emphasise that the mahi that has gone into this by the likes of Amy Haimona, the Adventure Trust, like Councillor Cranston had said, really much appreciated. For me, I think it needs to be plainly stated, the buck stops with us. The buck stops with us as council. That proximity to that process, we should have been a lot closer to that, and that actually the buck for that decision and for how this process has failed in its pockets, not its entirety, but it just takes it to just fail in the small kind of corner to undermine what is a really great project. That thing there belongs to us. As tough as it is for us to accept, because we weren't as close and we weren't able to go, hey, maybe this, and this in terms of engaging with dissenters or seriously affected people. That's the nature of council. That's the thing that we put our hand up to be elected to, and this is the nature of that organisation that we're elected to. So I just needed to speak that out into the ether as well.
Just giving you a heads up that we're wrapping up. So next is Councillor Elder and then Gregory.
One of my concerns is the cost of maintenance. All that fresh paint looks like fresh, but there's black wheelies all over it. The other thing is, how are we going to tackle the assessment process? Is it going to be an appraisal by council staff, a referendum, a poll, or the result of an incident report? So that's another question I think we need to check early. A word of warning to Tolaga Bay, if you're heading into the same path, perhaps you could borrow a few cones from up there and some $15 spray cans and do a little trial layout before you get this far in.
Councillor Gregory, thank you.
I just, listening to councillors just makes me remember that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I can remember turning up to the first consultation with Councillor Foster over there and being so surprised that there was no one else there.
I was there.
I was there.
I took over chairing it from the end.
Yeah, so I think that to try the processes, they tried to bring everyone in on it. I just wanted to say that.
I was also at the pizzeria.
You were
At the
sorry.
community event.
Councillor Corrihanger was there too, because the mayor having something else to go to.
Yeah, I just want to apologise. The way I've come across, it's like having a
your job. Your job.
It's not the case. I really appreciate the work you've and the passion you guys have got in terms of the walkways and everything else. I just also need to be the voice of the people coming to me. So to me, I'm just the voice for the people, and I'm doing them a disservice if I'm not being the voice.
I do want to thank everyone who took part today. Honest, robust feedback. This is the first time that we've done a project in this way. Also, as a council, we are usually, a project is ours, it's funded by ours or complemented by Whakaputahi, and we are in charge. So it's also the first time that a community group who has built the skate park and the pump track and has done a lot of work for free in the community as well has taken this over. So there will definitely be lessons learned. And so thank you, Dave. We will make sure feedback, so everyone, feedback goes straight to Dave.
RFS.
RFS. If you can see the look, yes. I'm just kidding. No, let me just clarify. The process is because that is how decisions will then be made to see if changes need to be made or if there are obvious issues. Just wait a second.
Yes, I mean, we've got to confirm with the Chief Executive how you want that feedback and which committee you want that feedback to go.
So we will leave it up to the team to do that. Tony, did you have one last comment?
Just on that, will we be socialising those feedback channels and also the assessment process so the community understands?
Open meeting. Mr. Winsley Wrigley, and this meeting is public.
And no one reads the Herald, it's obvious.
Tony Robinson. Anyway, what we did try today is get all the information out, be honest about it, be honest about the feedback, and also giving the opportunity to the public to know that we are listening. There's a channel that will go into and through the RFS system, and then in 2 weeks' time the layout will be completed. Hopefully this is on the front page of the Gisborne Herald, this map tomorrow, Winsley, right on the runner at the bottom. We'll just fill that space, and we make sure that is very, very clear what the finished project will look like, and then receiving feedback as we go.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Betty.
One last thing, we might like to have the same for Uhawa, please.
Yes, there we go, Bessie.
Login tricks.
Yes. Thank you. So what we will do, I'll close this workshop now. I thank everyone that took part. Thank you guys for coming along and sharing what you have done in this process as well. And there will be ongoing discussions between yourself and the team here at Council. Thank you. So we will break for 5 minutes, and then we will just break for 5 minutes, grab your lunch. We'll have a working lunch while we prepare for our 1 o'clock